Podtacular pedwar cant 24, Halo Pid, Siaradau Forge. Podtacular episode 424, Halo 5 discussions, Forge, for May 22nd, 2014.
Hello everyone, welcome to Podtacular, the unofficial Halo Universe podcast. I'm your host, Duststorm.
And I'm your other host, Brent Gamer.
And tonight we are bringing you the first official podcast of our Halo 5 discussions. We got some illustrious guest hosts on with us tonight to talk some Halo Forge. And you guys probably know who they are by now. One of them has been on the show before, and we've been interacting with a few others here. You can probably tell that my voice is a little different tonight. With me working late and doing stuff with a bunch of different websites and a bunch of different personal projects, I have become sick from deep sleep deprivation. So, if you hear me sniffle or cough or something, then that's the reason why. I'm going to try to keep that to a minimum for you guys, but just in case you hear the random cough or sniffle, that is why. But, to introduce our guest for tonight, we have returning Pete the Duck.
Hey guys.
Hello, welcome back to the podcast.
Thanks for having me. It's good to be back.
Our pleasure, man. Next up is Receptor 17. He does some screenshots that you may have seen on the Halo Bulletins, and he's also one of the probably more infamous people over on Griffball Hub. So welcome to the podcast.
Christ of power, thank you very much. Glad to be here.
Thank you for being on, man. Finally, we have someone else who I've just kind of come in contact with. So this is going to be our first introduction, so to speak, live on the show. So it is Psycho Duck. Welcome to the podcast, man.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Thank you for taking your time out of your day, guys, to be on to talk some Halo 5 Forge. As you guys know, we got the Halo 5 announcement last week. We had a big podcast with a lot of different community members last week. We had Green Skull, we had Mark Turcott from Guardians of Destiny, and we had quite a few other people on the show. It was a wild show, and it was really, really fun. We've had some follow-up conversations on Twitter, and there's been some YouTube videos out, so there will likely be some more discussions based on what came out last week. But for today, we're going to focus on Halo 5 Forge. One of the things that we wanted to do with the podcast was focus on some of the things that we would like to see with Halo 5. With the recent community hires, it's definitely apparent that 343 is taking a lot better notice for what the community wants for Halo, so we figured it'd be good we could join the ranks of some of the other websites on what they're doing and kind of discuss what we would like to see for Halo coming down the road. And that's why we have these guys on to talk about Forge, some of the best forgers known to the Halo franchise in the universe among the community. So we're very privileged to have these guys on tonight.
Oh, yeah.
First off, we are going to introduce or talk to a few people that have not been on the show before. So starting with Receptor 17. Give us a little bit of background on who you are, how you got into Halo, and what is it that you do within the Halo community.
Alright then, so I started playing Halo back in 2007 with the original Xbox, just after I finished my, I think it's basically middle school exams equivalent. So I remember playing Halo Combat Evolved and into Halo 2. Didn't have Xbox Live back then. Then came the year 2009 and I got Xbox Live for Halo 3, and it was good. And yeah, I kind of got addicted after that. So since then, I've been playing Halo on and off, but a lot more dedicated recently since joining Midland Base, which is a gaming group that I'm part of, which is Halo and Destiny dedicated. Very much, all about kind of friendly gaming. Great crew I've been with for 3 years now. They're the ones who kept me in Halo, who pretty much got me to screenshots actually, where I really did kick off about this time last year. And then I found Griffball Hub as well, so I'm on that side. So yeah, quite active, just taking screenshots, commentating games, and just being a crazy Welshman. So, yeah, that's me.
So you are a fellow gunslinger.
Heck yes.
Very nice. You come from a very prestigious line of Halo community people, including Deej, who's now the community manager at Bungie.
This is amazing. I feel so privileged.
Oh, man. It's been a while since I've been over there. But, glad to have you on the show, man. It's been quite interesting and good interacting with you. You got to get me on some Halo 4 and teach me some Forge tricks a couple months ago. And it was some pretty cool stuff. And that was one of the things where definitely want to get you on the show to talk about Forge stuff for Halo 5.
Indeed, and speaking of which, as we speak for this podcast, I'm making screenshots live on the new theme in the Halo Bulletin. So this week you may have some screenshots featuring in next week's bulletin made live during this podcast.
Which would be pretty cool if we got them in there. We'll have to give some major props to you if that happens. And it will obviously be the podcast art for next week if it does get up there.
What happens if it's multiple?
So our next guest who hasn't been on the show, Psycho Duck. Same goes for you. What got you into Halo, and what is it that you do within the Halo community?
All right. Well, let's see. So I started playing Halo back with Halo 2 sometime. So I played that for a long time before I had Xbox Live. Kind of similar story there. But eventually I got Halo 3, I got Xbox Live, started forging a lot, joined Forge Hub, was pretty active there for a while. And then eventually I came into contact with a YouTube channel called THFE, Halo Forge Epidemic, which I now run. Also helped found HaloCustoms.com. I guess I'm also the most recent addition to the Community Cartographer team. But I forge a lot. Play a lot, I forge what we would call, competitive maps, which doesn't mean, try hard, whatever nonsense, but more designs that you would play like standard Halo matches on. So not sure what else to say about that.
Cool. So for those who don't know, what is the Community Cartographers?
So the CCs are kind of the community, arm of the internal matchmaking sustain team. So we kind of help round up community made Forge maps and push them for matchmaking integration.
Very nice. And these are these centrally located, or are these something that you go through various websites and what people have put on their file shares, or something like HaloCustoms.com, or do you have a certain list that people submit to and then you go through those?
It's pretty organic, so we'll kind of pull maps from wherever. Just we have kind of this cool diverse group of people that each person has their own long list of connections. So we all kind of can pull maps from different places that we see. There's nothing super formal about where we pull these from, but they can kind of come from anywhere. So I already look for maps, obviously, because I feature them on my YouTube channel. Mm-hmm. So then it kind of just so I already have all these connections where I find maps and look for maps and all that. So yeah,
cool. What's kind of the big thing that you look for whenever you look for community made maps to go into matchmaking?
Oh boy.
Or is that too big of a question for you?
No, I mean, I guess it depends on the nature of what, what kind of playlist they might be going into. But if I'm looking at my, focus usually is kind of on big team battle stuff. So for big team battle, I think that the most important thing is the way vehicles and players on foot interact with each other. But then, you got to look at all kinds of stuff. You got to look at performance, if there's frame rate drops, and you got to look at there's so many different elements and designs you got to look at. And then there's, spawning and objective setup and all kinds of stuff. I don't know. It's not you don't just sit down and in 30 seconds say, oh yeah, this map looks good. It's a process. So
lots of testing involved, right?
Yes, very much so.
Is it something that you go in and you modify the maps, or do you coordinate with the original creator of the maps and kind of discuss with them what changes need to be made in order for it to get into the matchmaking playlist?
Preferably the latter. So, if push comes to shove and, we've got this map that is ready to go in and, it's damn near perfect, and it just needs this tiny little tweak and we can't get a hold of the author right away or whatever, we might make that tweak. But, best case scenario, we work with, the forger, And it's the same thing for me on my YouTube channel. Just, giving feedback, getting them to make changes, just having the author of the map really participate in the testing. And then it's kind of just a process between you and them to, get the map where it needs to be.
Cool.
Yeah.
Very nice. Receptor, since I just drilled Psycho Duck here for some questions, what's kind of the, I guess through all the screenshots that you've made for the screenshot highlight, what's kind of been your favorite theme so far?
Ooh, that's a really difficult one, because I think in terms of
themes... we ask the difficult questions here at Podtacular.
You are cruel and evil people, how could you do this to me? But to answer your question, typically I find that this week we had the theme of shotguns. The thing is, with those kind of themes, I find they're a bit too constrained, where, the focus is the shotgun, so, pretty much every spawn is running around with a shotgun, and then it doesn't really give you much opening. So when you have ones like, say, a specific color, a game type, that just gives you a little bit more play and a bit more opening to do. So probably I think one of the fun ones I had was Orange, which was, I think it was about 6 months ago now. And that was a really fun one to try, because I managed to find a couple of effects I never ever learned before just by messing around in theater with a auto sentry, and ended up becoming the front cover for the bulletin that week.
Very nice. That still didn't quite answer the question of what was. Well, no, you said orange was your favorite. Never mind. Sorry. Again, sick. A little. Be a little slow tonight, folks. So I guess we'll go ahead and skim through the news for this week, and we didn't cover quite a bit of news last week because we did have the big discussion around Halo 5. If you guys didn't catch that show, we did a show with about 9 different people, and it was crazy. We had a 2.5 hour podcast with some of the bigger names within the Halo community. So go check it out. It's on our website, podtacular.com, for those who are just finding us. And of course, you can find it in iTunes, Zune Marketplace, and other podcast feeds as well. So let's go ahead and start with the bulletin for this week, and we'll get to some other news here after that as well. Not much to talk about in the bulletin because we did have the big announcement from last week. But to start things off, we got a little blurb from Andy, who was kind of recapping his morning on the 16th, how he wasn't getting much sleep, and then we came into the studio. Not many people were there because they were probably just at home kind of relaxing from the big announcement and everything. They did provide a link to get the wallpaper for the concept art that they teased last week. So if you guys are looking to get that on your devices, whether it be desktop, Windows Phone, Android device, iOS device, you can go to the bulletin for this week and grab some sweet concept art for your devices. Very cool stuff. Matchmaking updates for coming up. The next playlist rotation that we're going to have is, of course, King of the Hill. That will be making a comeback this coming Monday. And the community choice for the game type that will be in there is Mosh Pit. Now, if you guys remember, yeah, so this was popular. I had a feeling this one was going to probably take it. We are going to be probably playing it quite a bit. I do remember Mosh Pit from Halo 3, and it was a lot of fun. No surprise that this one got picked, in my opinion, honestly. Especially when you have 80% of it chosen.
For those who've not played Mosh Pit before, what exactly is this and how does it work?
So, Mosh Pit is pretty much an all-out brawl. It's what you would imagine a Mosh Pit being. So it's this one hill and everyone just rushes to it, and it's just an all-out brawl to control the hill. It's a lot of fun.
And it's just plasma pistols and beatdowns. Melee only, so...
It is insanity. It's a lot of fun. I think it originated kind of in Halo 2 on Lockout, though, right? On the top mid? Kind of.
Yeah, I can remember playing that back in the day.
Yeah, so Mosh Pit definitely has some history with Halo, and it's no wonder why people voted for it, I think. So, we do have a couple other game types entering in some of the other playlists that are in matchmaking currently. Oddball has been added to the Team Doubles playlist, along with Neutral Flag. And then Neutral Flag has also been added to the Team Heavies playlist. So, cool stuff. There was an interesting post on the Chive this week where body painter Elsa Rai, I think that's how you say her name, sorry if I'm butchering it, She did a gorgeous piece on Master Chief, just body paint, and it's really cool. If you guys want to go check it out, it's on the bulletin, or you can head over to the Chive. Pretty cool. Have you guys seen this at all?
Yeah, I just looked at the bulletin a few minutes ago. It was pretty cool.
That's insane.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of detail obviously went into that kind of thing.
I just love the fact that she actually painted her hair as well, just to get that full helmet effect going around, which is a lovely little piece of detail. It really does just sell it so perfectly for that helmet. So it's like, damn, how do you do this?
Yeah. And she has a full post over on the chat, so she has some other stuff that she did as well. But, of course, it's Halo Master Chief, and it's hard to... I'm kind of speechless with how much detail was put into this, and it's really amazing. So check it out if you're on the bulletin. Last week, they brought back the community member spotlight, and HBO's Master Biggie was there. So shout outs to him for getting on to the return of the community spotlight, which is pretty cool. They asked some questions about how he got into Halo, what some of his favorite Halo moments are, what he does within the community. So if you want to know a little bit more about Master Biggie, he posts a lot of the news on HBO nowadays, other than Claude. So definitely go check it out. It's linked in this week's bulletin, and it's a very good read. I usually didn't read the community spotlights too much, but this is the first one I actually stopped and took a chance to read because it is a pretty good one. And Master Biggie's a really cool person from over at HBO. And for those who remember back in at PAX Prime 2012, the Handsome Men's Club, he was part of that picture. So major shout outs to you, man. And congrats for being on the return of the community spotlight.
I think it's great to see the kind of community spotlight stuff coming back, because one thing I have seen 3-3 criticized for a lot by good members of the community is the lack of community outreach, where they're focusing on that, but there wasn't really much discussion on outer communities and people who are in the Halo community. So it's good to see this coming back in now, just as they're focusing more on the people who play the game, buy the game. Guess I kind of feel more they're paying attention to what we as a community are saying, and they're taking it on board.
Definitely, I agree. And if you look at the post that Bonnie Ross made when they did announce Halo 5, they did talk about really focusing more on the community aspect of Halo. And we've really seen that with the recent hires that they've done. So Ghostiyama being hired, some of the other competitive people being hired. Grim Brother 1 was hired a couple weeks ago, and I think he just started working there either this week or last week. So they're definitely pulling out a lot of the big stops when it comes to community people that have been very influential with Halo in the past. And if you look at kind of where some of the people that were there already, Jess came from the community. She ran a blog called Honey McBloggy. So she came from the community. So community has always been an aspect that 343 has really focused on, but it seems now that they're really trying to get some of the people that have been a very integral part to the Halo community, specifically, has been very involved with the community. So I'm very excited. It's cool to see 343 take that direction. And I know a lot of people have recently posted that they're still kind of wary of where 343 could take Halo 5 because of how Halo 4 turned out. But my hopes, I think, are a little bit higher just because of I see a different 343, to be honest. I don't see the 343 that made the Halo 4 studio. I see a different 343. I see a different attitude with the people that are behind the game now.
Well, there's a lot of new people, too, from the community. They're working at 343 that weren't around when Halo 4 was in development.
Right.
And didn't Frankie say something like when they were originally building 343, they couldn't tell people they were working on Halo anyway, but now they have that flexibility and they can really get Halo people? I thought he said something like that.
I don't exactly remember. Was it the thing that he posted?
It was a really... No, this was like maybe a year ago or so.
Okay,
it was a really
so
controversial quote where he said something like he basically had to hire people that hate Halo, but that's not really what he meant. But it's because they couldn't tell people that they were interviewing, hey, you're making a Halo game. They had to kind of pretend they weren't or something. But now they don't have to do that anymore. They can say, hey, we're making Halo. We want Halo people on our team.
Well, I mean, when you make a company that's called 343 Industries, and we already know you're working on Halo content, it's really hard to not say that you're not working on Halo. But I definitely think there was some marketing pulls from Mother Microsoft that really had, I mean, and this is just personally, I don't know this for a fact, but I think there were some negative influences there, which unfortunately caused certain outcomes of Halo 4. So I don't blame 343 at all for what they did with Halo 4. It was their first game. It was an experience that they tried to mess around with a lot of stuff, and frankly, it was something that the community really didn't like, and now they know, and they're going to come back and make Halo 5 with how the community wants it. The trick
Fingers
is,
crossed.
yeah, exactly. The trick is going to be able to incorporate new things and revamp the Halo experience to where it's still Halo and it's still something that people will latch onto, but it does kind of innovate a little bit into what Halo has already established. And that's going to be the big challenge for those guys.
Yeah. But they also have more dev time now, too.
Yeah, I am super happy that they announced that it's coming out February 2015. The 3-year dev cycle was definitely needed. And I think that's one of the reasons why Halo 4 didn't turn out to be as successful as it could have been. So, moving on throughout the rest of the bulletin, we just got the screenshot spotlight to cover. Receptor has a screenshot in here. So if you guys are listening to us live right now, go check it out. If you're listening to us to record it, still go check it out. It's a pretty cool one. Definitely makes one of the top on my list, along with Enter the Matrix by Omega Maddox and Demon by TRX117. Right?
I know I'm searching through these at the moment, trying to figure out which one is my absolute favorite.
It's interesting to see some of the effects people have used, because it's quite interesting now, because I've done so many screenshots, and I know quite a few members of the community have been featured in this because I've worked with them before. It's interesting seeing, what effects they've used to make some of these screenshots for each one, because I can identify maps, I can identify armor, I can identify skins. I think I've become so immersed into the visual aspect of Halo 4, I could probably just look at a screenshot and say the map, the skin, the armor, and what effect they're using.
He's a visual archivist.
I like Blue Thunder by Z6 Nitro. Probably the best. Just because of the lightning bolt in the background. I mean, I understand, like, I've always complained about, like, environment being in the background as, like, the only thing that saves a screenshot. But this one is just especially cool looking, in my opinion. I don't know.
And you don't have to take 1,000 frames to capture the lightning either.
Yeah. I want to go with the one by Receptor 17 because it's the only one that really looks like this dude is about to use that shotgun. Like, I'm going to go shoot something. That's what that picture tells me.
Yeah, he's ready for some close quarters combat. He's like, yeah.
That's true.
Ready. My body's ready.
I think that was actually an accidental screenshot. I just happened to have my Spartan sprinting, and when you're in theater mode, basically what you do is when you do a screenshot, you press pause, and then you hold down your trigger button very, very lightly, because what it does then, it does a frame by frame by frame by frame, so you can get the perfect pose, and then you can zoom in as if you were with a sniper rifle. The background then zooms in, so that's how you can get like the lightning bolt in Z6 Nitros. Screenshots to be really close, so it's not like really far away. You get a lovely close up of the Spartan. And yeah, it was just a perfect shot. Just I'm saying, oh, that's cool, snap, and that's the one that got selected.
Got a little forge tips for you guys, or I guess screenshot tips, not quite forge.
I have plenty.
Yes, I think we spent 2.5 hours talking forge stuff. Whenever you were teaching me some tricks,
something like that. Yeah, because it's amazing actually how simple just some of the simple effects you need are. Because I think one of the biggest ones that a lot of people do is they rely just on the matchmaking footage. The problem with some of the matchmaking footage, I think it's used in Neon Summer. It always seems to be a bit too bright and it lacks any kind of depth. So it's, you look at it, the colors they lack any kind of shadow or anything like that. The trick is in Forge you have what's known as FXs in the gadget selection. It's these weird little spheres, and when you select them, they add a certain effect to the map you're playing in. So, like with Vine Sprints, I've used what's known as the oldie-timey setting. So it gives that kind of really kind of dark look aspect, so it looks vintage and old. Then you have other ones which are juicy, which gives it more of a colourful aspect, but it can alter the hues of the colours. Then you have colorblind, which makes everything black and white, clues in the name. Combine that with juicy, and that is everything I use in every screenshot pretty much. It is my bread and butter because it keeps the original colors, but everything is a lot more vivid with extra shadow. So you get those lovely contrasts on the armor, in the backgrounds. That's basically what typically the loadouts I go for. Pen and ink, very rarely used because everything... I kind of describe it as if a nuclear bomb has just gone off and you have that kind of massive whiteout. That's basically what happens with...
It's Fallout in Halo.
Pretty much, yeah. On Meltdown, it's even funnier. But it is just...
Oh, God.
the pen and ink is, not one often used, but when used properly, it can be a really nice addition.
Very cool. Do you want to give any other Forge tutorials before we dive into the main topic here? Or do you want to save that for another podcast?
I think maybe save it for another podcast, just to keep you all enticed.
Alrighty. A couple other news on the Halo front. We may have covered this before, not exactly sure if we did or not. But the Halo CE patch. So if you guys don't know, GameSpy is shutting down its services. It's the service that ran the server listing for Halo PC and quite a few other games on the PC platform. A small group of people within the community have worked with another company. I'm trying to find it here. A non-games, basically trying to get a non-GameSpy server set up to still kind of have that kind of service available. And Bungie's actually picked up and coordinated with some of the community effort there. So an official 1.10 patch came out last week that will support the new non-GameSpy services for this server listing. So for those of you who are still playing Halo PC, I know I got my start on Halo PC and Halo Custom Edition first. So you can go over and download that patch. You can go download it for free. You just replace your Halo.exe, and if you have dedicated servers, you just replace those EXEs, and you have the update there. Includes some other updates too. Includes higher resolution support, handling video cards that have a large amount of memory, removing some debug stuff, updating some models, and fixing some in-game tags as well. So you can check that out if you are still a Halo PC player. So Halo PC support is not going anywhere. On the other hand, Halo 2 Vista support, still no word on that. It's going to be shutting down pretty much with the shutdown of Games for Windows Live, which happens on the 1st of July. I still need to get with Bravo and see how that exactly impacts. So I'll try to get in touch with him and see how that exactly impacts Halo 2 Vista. But for all of you Halo PC and Custom Edition folks, functionality is not going anywhere. So rejoice and be happy.
Yay!
Huzzah!
Yay! Huzzah! Some Xbox news front. This isn't quite related to Halo, but because of being Xbox gamers and everything, it's kind of important for people that may be on Xbox One. The June rollout is coming very soon. We have some updated features coming, things including a Connect List Xbox, which a lot of people have been asking for. So starting June 9th, you can get Connect List Xbox Ones at your local retailer.
I'm excited for that. I've been holding out for a price drop on the Xbox One, and I had no interest in using the Kinect, to be perfectly honest. So this sounds like a good opportunity for me to upgrade and play Destiny on a next-gen console and all that.
Yeah. So a lot of people are very happy. Yeah. Go ahead, Brent.
I'm excited to see the sales numbers a month after this or 2 months. See how this actually affected them.
It would be interesting.
I've several people I've talked to are coming from the same place I am, as far as, they just want to play video games in a standard format, and they just want the next, more powerful console. They don't want, the Kinect and all that added functionality. And they don't want to pay for that because they know they're not going to really use it. So,
right.
I'm excited. I know a lot of people who are excited as well. So it should be nice.
Definitely. They've also confirmed that there will be external hard drive support. For hard drives that are running on USB 2.0, it'll be capable of holding up to 256 gigs. And for USB 3.0 devices, that limit hasn't been defined, but Major Nelson tweeted out a picture earlier this week of a 6 terabyte USB 3.0 hard drive attached to an Xbox. So the limits on that are pretty wide and open.
What would you do with 6 terabytes?
Well, with how many games are scheduled to come out probably over the next 3 years, you could probably download them all and keep them.
Mm-hmm.
That'd be my guess if you want to keep all your digital downloads. Because I think at this point, if you've bought every single title that you can buy for the Xbox One, I don't know if you would have any hard drive space left, to be honest.
I don't know. I have a 20 gigabyte hard drive on my 360 that's about 7 years old. So juggling space on there is fun. So 6 terabytes just sounds a little incomprehensibly large. Yes, overkill.
Yeah. Pins Halo in the chat said USB keyboard support. I haven't heard anything yet on that. It may be one of those small things where they rolled into an update, but I am not sure actually. I think they rely on Smart Glass to really support that feature of having a keyboard, but I don't know. That was something that I was wondering too about having keyboard support for the Xbox One, but hopefully they'll add it. Maybe they'll roll it in with this update. So we'll see. A couple other features coming. They will be dropping the requirement to have Xbox Live Gold for paid services such as Netflix, Hulu Plus, and other free ones like YouTube and Twitch and that kind of stuff. So you will not have to have Gold for those premium apps anymore if you are a paid subscriber to those.
That was always insane that you needed Gold to access those services.
Yeah, now this is only on Xbox One. They didn't say this was for the 360, but it is a step in the right direction.
I thought it was across all platforms.
Is it?
I thought so. I thought it was just basically no matter if you had Gold or Silver, you could just have access to all of the video services no matter what. Just like every other console. You can get Netflix on your 3DS without having to pay for some sort of subscription. I mean, other than Netflix.
And PlayStation. So, yeah.
I'm just saying it was always a little absurd.
Yeah, I'll check up on that real quick. But yeah, so at least I know for the Xbox One console, you will not need Xbox Live Gold in order to get access to Netflix and those kind of things. Let's see, 360 updates on the Xbox One, 360. Yeah, so okay, you're right. Yep, Xbox One and Xbox 360.
I think that makes more sense. I was gonna say you would think it would roll over.
Yeah, I knew it for sure for the Xbox One, but yeah, for the 360, yep, it will be it'll be the same over there where you don't have to have the Xbox Live Gold for those premium services. Also, Xbox will be introducing games for Gold on the Xbox One system next month. So the same program that they have for the Xbox 360 games for Gold will be starting to roll out in June. So basically next month, and within a week and a half or so, you'll be getting your first free game that you can download on the Games for Gold for Xbox One. And they're also adding special discounts for Gold subscribers too, so you can get discounts on a lot of different games pretty soon coming down the line.
I always thought they already did that. Like they already had like discounts with Gold. You'd go into the special Gold deals or whatever. Those were only if you had Xbox Live Gold.
I think, yeah. I don't
just
think
seems kind of weird that they're touting that as a new feature when I thought that was already going on.
Well,
so this is just it's going for Xbox One. Sorry,
okay.
Yeah, it's on 360. This is launching for Xbox One. Sorry.
Gotcha.
Yeah, they're extending that program to the Xbox One essentially. And we also have for those that play Minecraft, a Halo mashup will be coming to Minecraft very soon. There hasn't been a date set yet, but PlayXBLA.com has been releasing some screenshots that 4J Studios has been compiling together for the mashup pack, and they're pretty cool. You can be a Monitor, you can be Master Chief, and there's some other skins. I believe Johnson's in there, and there's some Halo-specific tiles that they've skinned for the experience too. So for those that play Minecraft, you'll be getting a mashup pack available for Minecraft on the Xbox very soon.
I'm waiting for someone to put out a speculation video on this. This confirms that Halo 5 Forge will be outsourced to Minecraft. 100% true.
Well, I did put in the post that I made for it, the Halo comes out to the ultimate Forge world, so to speak.
Right.
So I think I saw a few other tweets kind of tout the same thing too. But I've played Minecraft a lot, and it's really cool to see this mashup pack coming. I'm excited, personally. Real names are coming to the Xbox One as well, so instead of having to track down people that change gamer tags left and right, you can just see their real name kind of as a subtitle to them. So you always know who is who. Sometimes that's easier, though, because there's some really funky elite names out there, and it's hard to keep track sometimes. So real names will be coming in the June update for Xbox One, for those that are interested in that. Last piece of news that I will tout out is we have our first confirmed actor in the Halo, not Halo 4, the Halo digital feature. I personally don't know this guy, so if you guys know who he is, feel free to chime in. But Mike Coulter, he's an actor on Good Wife, which I don't watch, but he will be, I think he'll be another Spartan in this digital feature. So we have that confirmed. I'm sorry, I don't have much other information to talk about that. I don't know who this guy is. I didn't do my research, sorry, but we have someone that's announced, I guess. Do any of you guys know who this guy is?
Nope.
I feel kind of bad.
I'm just looking at the IMDb website now just to see if I've got the right one. Is it Colter?
Yes.
Let's see.
Yes, it is.
Let's see. The gentleman was born in 26th August 1976, so he's a pretty mature actor. So he's certainly going to be playing, I imagine, not the youngest of characters. So we're not looking at kiddie soldiers from Spartan 2 program, definitely. So,
right.
Yeah, I'd probably predict, probably a Spartan 4 or ODS2 TU's undergoing training to become a Spartan 4, something along those lines.
Yeah.
But, in terms of what he said before, no idea.
Yeah, sorry, no offense or anything, but yeah. Now, if
he wasn't the $1 Million Baby,
which
is a boxing movie, I think, in 2004.
I'm just gonna move on before we
I guess we'll all get to find out who he is soon enough.
Yes, we will. We will. But yeah, that's it for the news this week. We will be giving you more news next week, probably. Depends on what exactly we're doing. But now on to the main event of the show. So we have these guys on, obviously, to talk about Forge. And Pete the Duck has pulled together a Forge wish list that the community has really developed and come up with. He pulled quite a few different sites, including HBO. And I'm going to let him pretty much drive the rest of this discussion. And I'll let him pull out the big parts, and then we'll discuss accordingly. So, Pete, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Let me introduce this project of mine. What I wanted to do is I wanted to create a wish list that kind of represented the general consensus of the Halo community. Now, I know it doesn't represent everybody. Not everybody's going to agree with it. I didn't get in touch with every forger out there, so I understand if people might not be completely on board with it. But my goal was to pick the main things out of the community, the ideas that were really common, and put those together so I could present them to 343. The list is for 343. It wasn't really for the community to entertain them or anything like that. It was something I wanted to put together for them, and that's the reason I made it a list and stuff like YouTube or video or something like that. So it's just a wish list. It has some things on it that I think are really, really critical and some things that are more fantastical. It's just kind of a cool idea. I don't really expect to see it happen, but it's worth including because it'd be really cool. And I guess, are we just going to go through it item by item? Is that the plan for tonight?
I would say try to pull out some of the big ones and just go over quickly some of the smaller ones. And if I hear something, I'll speak up, and I encourage everyone else on here. If you guys hear something you want to talk about, definitely just speak up, and we'll judge accordingly the time that it takes, and we'll either speed up or slow down as needed.
Okay, and I'm definitely interested to hear Psycho Duck's thoughts on these and Receptor 17. What you guys think of these as we go through it? To start out, the way I kind of organize this is to start with the conceptual UI, the kind of top down perspective. So we're going to start with the broad ideas and then get more specific and ultimately end with individual items in Forge. So that's kind of how I organized it. But the first thing is kind of a controversial topic because Halo 4 benefited so much by the addition of Forge Island. But one of the things that I really don't want to see happen again is DLC for Forge that's not mandatory, because it makes it really hard to get those maps in the matchmaking and get players playing them when the maps aren't on everybody's hard drive. So that was kind of like how I started this out. It's like I'm really hoping that 343, nails it launch day and they don't have to add any DLC. But if they do, that they make it mandatory like a title update.
Yeah, that makes sense. It would. I don't know why they didn't make it mandatory because it is free. I guess from maybe a size perspective for people's hard drives on the 360, but other than that, I don't know why they wouldn't make it just required DLC.
I think it's not required because they're afraid that, going to the marketplace is, there's some fear that it's, putting people out of their way to like get in the game or something. Which is why I think that including it in a title update would be ideal, because then it just gives it to everyone right away, done, and then everyone can play it. Because right now it is very difficult to get Forge Island maps in matchmaking.
Yeah, because one of the things that we run into occasionally on Wacky Wednesdays is we want to play a Forge Island map and someone doesn't have the DLC.
I know, and it's free. Just download it. But
yeah, exactly.
I mean, even on the Griffball side, since Forge Island came out, pretty much every court that's used in the AGLA, the Good Games League, it always uses the Forge Island option, and then a lot of the courts that have been added into the playlist on Griffball matchmaking are also the same. But we have no luck being able to play these ones because we just can't play them. And there's 4 or 5 courts that have since gone in. What the Griffs courts? There's Travis the others now, which are going to bother me. So the Griffball crowd are just going to absolutely mess me for that one. But it is a difficult one because every time you go into the yes, new court. Oh, can't play it. Yep. Why can't we play it?
Yeah. So the next thing is kind of a obvious thing is add some kind of in-game Forge tutorial or something. This is, in my mind, really focused on game type labels. So when you're trying to build like a capture the flag map and you have all these vague game type labels, having something that just gives a description of what it does and what object to use it for, that would be really helpful.
I think the duckling wants your attention.
Yeah, can you guys hear that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wasn't gonna say anything about it. That's not the problem, really.
Okay, hold on, just 1 second. Hold on.
Okay.
The duckling. Yeah, going off of that last point, I think it would be nice to have that. Although I did like when Halo 4 came out, I got on like, okay, I need to discover everything and then I'll put it all out in videos and get it out to everyone. And it was kind of an opportunity to establish like on a YouTube front to like establish my channel as like a resource for Forge. I guess that's kind of selfish to say that I would like to be able to do that again, but I don't know. I guess that does make sense as a feature, just because there is definitely a lot of things in there in some of the Forge menus, like what's it called? I forget what it's called. There's one. Oh man, it's gonna bug me.
Elaborate. Let's help you out.
So, okay. All right, that's what it is. So there's a user data field in the Forge menus. And there was, I guess, Certain Affinity eventually kind of talked about it, but off the bat, it wasn't actually used in anything, but it was always kind of confusing because it was like, what's this going to do? And then you're, like fumbling around with it, like what? I don't know.
Yeah, well, one of the things, and I don't know if this is listed in Pete's Forge wish list. I guess we'll find out because I haven't been able to read through everything yet. But there hasn't been a really good guide, like an official one, that can really go through what all the tags mean. And it's cool that the community can go and try to pick and figure out what each one does. But it'd be nice to have something officially from 343 that says, okay, this tag does this, and you can do these with it. These are things that we intend to do with the tag, and these are things we encourage you to do with the tags. And if you can figure out other cool ways to do it, then have people in the community figure those out. But when it comes to forging, I mean, there's a whole bunch of tags, and people can get really overwhelmed with how many tags there are.
Yeah, right. And one example is in Halo Reach. Who else was really confused the first time they tried to make an infection map because you had to put a safe haven on the map, even
all the
if you weren't going to use
yeah.
it. And so you're going to Google to try to figure this stuff out, or I'm sorry, Bing. But having something in game that says here's what you need for this game type. Here's what object you apply this to. Here's what it does. Just throw that in the menu, a one-line little item. I think that would be really great.
One thing I'd like to see would be taking the community cartographers and actually have them do in the game. You could do a tutorial and you have them voicing over saying, this is this tag. It can be used for this, this, and this, and this, and you see a video of how it's used. Because typically, sometimes it's just seeing it, as a video, see how it's added, how it's applied, and then you can see it in game.
Yep. So moving on, if we're ready to move on.
Yeah, go for it.
Something to organize map files. If you have Forge Island and you have 200 maps, they're just in the alphabetical list. Something to organize them would be great.
How quick it's a load.
Yeah. Having custom thumbnails for maps would be awesome when you're
that would be awesome.
That would be so convenient.
Yeah, especially in matchmaking when you're trying to vote and there's like 3 maps with identical pictures. That'd be cool.
What map is this?
There were rumors that was going to be added to Halo 4 like a year ago, and it never happened. But that would be a really nice feature because you have obviously you place loadout cameras, and if you could just do something like that was a thumbnail camera that just took that shot. But also, I don't know, maybe this is a point you were going to get to, Pete, but talking about like organizing your map files, I don't know about you guys, but this glitch that's existed in the UI since Reach, and I'd imagine that if they're gutting the engine and redoing it, it would be gone. But like I'll be going through my files, and all my files will double.
Yep.
And it won't load the details on any of them, and I'll like, geez, it's terrible. I'll like be scrolling down the list trying to find this map, and then like I have to sit there and wait for the details to like catch up and load, and then they never do, and then oh boy.
Well, the one big thing for me is like,
all that.
Yeah, and the big thing for me was whenever we do Wacky Wednesdays or custom lobbies is the doubling up of files in Halo 4.
Yeah.
How does that make sense? How does that happen?
Made in 1970.
I'm like, it's like, okay, so you double up the files, and now I have to wait for it to even load before I can. Yeah. So.
And there's a couple other things I got listed here, like clear up the loadout camera so it's not blurry.
Yes.
Eliminate the post-round scoreboard in Forge. Those are just small little things to make things easier, like an ability to skip shadow rendering. It's just a convenience thing. It's not a big thing. It's just a convenience. But one thing that's in this section that I thought was a really cool idea, this came from the community, is the ability to make a playlist for your custom game lobby. And I think that would be really, really cool to just, set up some maps, and then it's almost like running your own server, but you're playing, and it just kind of automatically picks the next map and game type, and having something where you can build a playlist and maybe upload it to your file share, and people can go to your file share, grab your playlist, and then they can run your playlist. It would be really cool, I think, for custom game lobbies to be able to do something like that.
That would be very cool.
Yeah. Definitely agree.
The other thing I would see is matchmaking, is in the main matchmaking. Would you see the population drop suddenly as a result of that?
No, because there's still a large population of people that, if you're not active on websites and whatnot, finding, enough people to host a custom lobby is difficult. So I don't think that would affect the matchmaking population too much. It would just be something that like the existing custom games community would probably have a heyday with. I think that'd be really cool. I'd love to be able to like link to that in like a video description or whatever, like here's this map and then here's the playlist we played it in with, so it gives you the exact settings I played, and then, has a list of similar content or whatever. That'd be really cool.
Yeah, I thought that was an awesome idea. That's what I had for the UI and general stuff. For the game type section, it's really just all about versatility. And that's something that was really lacking in Halo 4. Game types in Halo 4, they were designed to be what they are and nothing else. And Forge thrives on versatility and using game types for anything but what they're intended for. So, I mean, it's as basic as being able to disable sprint if you want to, or get rid of the Flood player model so Flood can use any weapon, to, have one-sided objective options and different stuff like that. Let us make classic capture the flag if we want to, so you have to hold X to pick up the flag or whatever. It's just all the game type stuff is just versatility. Give us options. You don't have to use them in matchmaking, but please give us those options for custom games.
Dropping objects, yes, please.
Dropping the flag and ball, and I want assault back.
Well, okay, so here's what I don't get. You can toggle auto pickup in Griffball and Ricochet, but not in Flag. What? Why?
That's a good point.
I mean,
it's a really good point.
Oh, geez, that drives me nuts. And then just on that front, there's no sudden death.
Well, you can do that with Oddball too, right?
Probably.
I think they just extended the Oddball stuff, and that's why you can't.
Oh, maybe.
That'd be my guess.
Yeah. So, I mean, there's all kinds of stuff. Like, where are the one-sided objective modes? Those were huge. My favorite modes: one flag CTF, ASIM territories, gone. And
assault on Zanzibar.
Assault,
Bam.
Yeah, good stuff too. And then
in high ground, assault in high ground.
Oh yeah, I mean, all kinds of stuff just disappeared. And then you can kind of like, we have a one flag variant where you have to hide the blue flag under the ground or whatever, and then it works, but then everyone gets confused and whatever, and it's just terrible.
Because there's still that waypoint for the flag that you hit
underground.
Yep. Confused you will be.
Yeah. Well, and then on that front, why is sudden death gone in Halo 4 is another question I ask a lot. We have overtime, but you only go into overtime when both teams have the same score at the end of the match. Whereas sudden death, the way that worked was if anyone is still holding an objective at the end of the match, it goes into sudden death. So like last night I was playing customs, and the game is like, we're about to tie the game. I'm carrying the enemy flag. I'm like 10 feet away from our base. And it's like, oh, well, if this was any other Halo game, sudden death, I'd score, game would tie, it'd be great. Game ends when I'm, 10 feet away from capturing the flag. It's like, oh, man, what?
Well, you kind of had that back with the sudden death in Halo 3 because you had that countdown timer of 2 minutes if you're holding up the objective.
Yeah, no, that's what I mean. I mean, you had exactly what I want in the past, and now it's gone.
Yeah. There's a lot of these features that, with how they've been implemented, it's just weird to remove some of the things that people want. And I can understand taking them out for matchmaking because you want to tailor the matchmaking experience to something that you want, something that kind of promotes a little bit more of the newer stuff that you have and some of the more, I guess, quote unquote, core game types of the game. But for all these features and things that have been in past Halo games, there's no reason why they can't have it in custom games, I think.
Toggle sprint was probably one of the biggest.
That was a big,
Mm-hmm.
And there's a big discussion between sprint on a lot of the competitive community doesn't want it. I think a lot of other people want it. I personally want it because I think it's a cool feature. And it makes sense that you can run and sprint as a Spartan, but that's just me.
Yeah, I won't go into. we'll be talking about sprint for the next hour, and
it's for another show. We'll probably have a show just on sprint.
From my perspective, it's more on the custom game side. Sometimes you want to turn it off just to keep the gameplay really simple. If you're creating a really unique experience, sprint just makes it a little more complicated. Yeah. And sometimes it's nice to just get rid of that.
Yeah, I mean, it would be so simple. Like, it just makes sense. Okay, you can have sprint or you cannot have sprint. Like, that makes sense. Forcing
have sprint
is, silly.
Yeah.
Another podcast.
One thing on the topic of game types is it should be literally impossible for a red player to spawn at a blue player's spawn point.
Oh, that drives me nuts.
Well, okay.
Wait,
so
what?
If a spawn point itself is labeled as belonging to blue team, it is impossible for a red player to spawn on it.
Not
However,
in Halo 4.
Well, no, wait. The respawn zone weighting in Halo 4 is very weak. So if you just have a red respawn zone over all these spawn points, a blue player can still spawn in there. It's less likely, but so you end up like stacking them, and you have like 18 red respawn zones over the red side of the map to try to prevent, blue players from spawning over there and stuff.
I'm not sure. I'm not 100%. I thought it was either way. There's no way to prevent players from switching sides. I really thought there was. I mean, this is something I tested really early in Halo 4. It's been a while, so I couldn't tell you 100%. But either way, I think we're agreed on that. You should be able to lock, I don't want that team to spawn here. This is just for red team or something like that.
Well, and that'll just, the way the spawn engine is designed in Halo 5 is, completely, who knows?
Halo 4.
Completely up in the air. Or I mean the way it will be designed.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
So,
anything else you guys want to talk about game types?
I don't know where this exactly falls in, but the ability, so for the King of the Hill game type, so you have a game type that you play every once in a while called Hog Hill, and the hills only go up from A to I. It's like, what's up with that?
Yeah.
Oh, what you want to
just make it like if you can have more than was it?
So
10
you want
hills
a J hill and a K hill?
Yeah, it's like
okay.
That's something really minor, but
yeah. I mean, that's
I feel sorry for Sniper if they do that, because you would just have to go through the entire NATO alphabet, and even then that's 26.
Yeah, but I mean, what's the likeliness that you're going to use more than 26 hills? Not very, but there is a good likeliness you're going to use more than 10.
Yeah.
Especially if you're Pete the Duck.
Yeah. And kind of on that topic, I kind of threw everything under the veil of versatility, but talking about hills, maybe I want to have 10 hills active at once, but I can only do 3. The game type options are really, really limited, and sometimes it feels really arbitrary. Like, why can't I have 4 hills active at once? I can only have 1, 2, or 3. Maybe I want 26 active. I could do something with 26 hills. You can actually do that. It's a little tricky, but there's a little glitch if you use, I think it's sequential hill movement, and you have like 1 hill 1 and then like 50 hill 2s. When it moves to hill 2, there'll be like a whole bunch of hills active at once. But it's a little glitchy. Having an actual legit option would be nice.
Yeah. One of the other things is something that you could probably pull from Reach, which I know you experimented with a lot, Pete, was the Insane game type, which just had a ton of options that you could use. Something like that would be pretty cool to bring back into Halo 5 Forge. And I think that falls under your versatility thing, just having a lot of those additional options that you can mess around with the game types.
Yeah, I think you're talking about the Halo Ball game type from Halo Reach.
I mean, that was one of the ones that you made.
Insane was an umbrella that had like chess and Halo Ball and speed pile and whatnot. But yeah, the Halo Ball game type would be.
I tell you what, man, Certain Affinity killed it with Ricochet and the multi-team Ricochet game type. That is the most amazing game type that's ever been released for a Halo game. The stuff that you can do with it is amazing. The only thing I kind of don't like is I wish you could turn off both waypoints, both for the ball and the hill. The goal and the ball. I mean, if you're using the Forge goal and Forge ball, you can't turn off both waypoints. I'd really like to be able to do that. But that game type, it just blows my mind sometimes, the things you can do it. If we had that at launch, I think the Forge community would have done much better than it ended up doing. So.
Okay.
Yeah.
Move right along.
Moving along. The next thing I had was just kind of aesthetic and canvas ideas. So,
heck yes.
For me,
screenshots.
I definitely.
Pretty much.
Well, yeah. Okay. Yes. This definitely covers things that would be great for screenshots. Starting out, I really loved Forge Island, and I want to see that kind of super simple canvas. But I think there needs to be a Forge Island and a Forge World style canvas in Halo 5. I think we need both. Both are valuable for different reasons. So that's kind of, I don't think we need to have 3 different forge canvases like we did in Halo 4. I think you can have one that gives you options for changing the skybox and changing the weather and stuff like that, so we can change the appearance of it. But I don't think we need to have a bunch of little ones. Just my personal perspective. I know a lot of people have different ideas for that, but definitely I want to have something super simple and something a little more defined.
On that note, okay, so in Halo 4 we have kind of 2 extremes, right? So we have the initial 3 canvases, which all had, they each have their merit, but I think they each have some like glaring flaw of some sort. So like on Ravine, the giant Forerunner structure like clashes with everything in the object palette, and it gets in the way if you want to make anything hanging off the natural terrain. Or, erosion and impact have frame rate issues, or, you arrive at frame rate issues very easily. There's like the giant prefab structure in the middle of one of the asteroids on impact that you can't get rid of. It's like, I want to build a map there.
it doesn't match anything in the Forge palette. It's at some weird like 6-degree angle, so you can't build off of it really.
Right. And then on the other extreme, we have Forge Island, which gives us 3 completely flat spaces. So like something that was really nice about Forge World was you had all these rolling hills that you could work off of. So especially if you're making like a BTB map and you need some height variation. And it's like, okay, on Forge Island, you have to sort of artificially create all your height variation. And, because it's entirely flat. So then, of course, as soon as Forge Island came out, people start putting out these maps that take up the whole island and are entirely flat, and the sightlines are ridiculously long and all this. It's like...
Yeah, you got rocks that are making hills and mounds and all that stuff.
Yeah, and that's a start. I think if you're going to give us an entirely flat canvas, give us more options to create like natural geometry. Or if you're going to give us 3 islands, put rolling hills on one of them, make one of them entirely flat, and do something else with the third one or something.
Crater.
Yeah, or or whatever. I mean, any number of things. Just having too much terrain to work, or already on the canvas, gets to be really limiting when you're trying to forge. But having nothing doesn't give you a whole lot to work with sometimes.
Yeah, and it depends on the project. Like if I'm making, an entirely inside, multiplayer map or something like that, I don't need any map geometry. I'm going to build everything myself. And so having a flat space is perfectly fine for me. Keeps frame rate down. But, like you said, if you want to build something with rolling hills, a big outdoor space, you need options to do that too.
Right.
I personally like having, just from an aesthetic perspective, and having different kind of environments, having the 3 different maps, because you do have semi-nighttime spacey one with impact, and then you have erosion, which kind of gives you a little bit more kind of a dark, dank feel, and then ravine is that typical Forerunner. I do like having the different kind of palettes to use and the different kind of color themes, but I do see where you guys are like, you want to focus more on being able to build off of that stuff. But it'd be cool if I mentioned this before Halo 4 came out on one of our other discussions around Forge. It'd be nice to be able to like change the palette of the stuff. So basically have objects, so you can have like a UNSC palette, a Covenant palette, a Forerunner palette, and stuff like that. Yeah. And be able to kind of like switch back and forth.
Yeah, you're kind of getting at what my goal was, and that is we need visual variety. But I don't think we necessarily need to do that through separate canvases, where if you make a map on impact and maybe you decide this would look better on ravine, you have to completely rebuild it on a different forge canvas. Maybe we can just swap out the skybox using something like the special effects. Just spawn an object and the skybox changes. We need that visual variety, but I think there's a couple different ways to accomplish it. And I think, some flexibility when you're halfway through a project, if you want to change up something of visual, I think it'd be really cool to be able to do it that way.
Yeah. And I see down here you actually have a palette section, so I guess we'll get to that a little bit later. Yeah. Sorry for jumping ahead.
No problem.
Did you mention weather?
Yeah, stuff like this would be great for screenshots, for effects on maps. Snow, rain, fog. It's just something. Forgers want visual variety. They want to be able to theme their maps. I mean,
I personally think it'd be cool to play in some of those kind of environments too. Like play at night, have just the lights off your armor. Like it would be totally just custom games that you would do this in. But like there were the 2 firefight maps in ODST that were played at night, and those are pretty cool. I would like to see that kind of ability to be done with custom maps, and I think it would be it would give a little more customizability for people that make those kind of like horror infection game types without having to go all crazy on the effects.
Right. Well, yeah, talking about effects, like I can't comment on their like screenshot and machinima potential, but none of them really look believable enough to work at all. In like, if you want, I have this great map. Let's see, if it was dark, it'd be really cool. Put on, like Juicy, and it's like, oh no, not that. No.
and
then it's like, oh, here, let's
even then it's too dark.
Let's try next gen. Oh no. Don't like that either. And it's like, if we had, if they weren't going to go like all out and do like weather effects and whatnot, because that would be a pretty big undertaking. I'm sure it'd be taxing on the engine, blah, blah, blah. But if at least the special effects options were a bit more usable, I think that would, be a good alternative. And then, like you said, being able to reskin objects, or not reskin them, but like pick different object like texture palettes would be.
Yeah, it'd be really cool if you could do that. And I kind of miss some of the Covenant stuff. I miss a couple of those purple maps.
Yeah, there's not really a lot of that in Halo 4.
I don't think there's any of them in Halo 4. There's not any Covenant maps in Halo 4.
There's a crashed Covenant ship on Wreckage, but it's like just making up one of the facades on the exterior of the map.
Yeah.
I hadn't really thought about that, but there's really, even in campaign, I don't think there's really anything.
I think the only thing you have is you hop into a leash, and that's it. And even then, that's like a tiny, tiny ship.
And that's only in the campaign.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah, there's no Covenant environments. I kind of miss that a little bit. Not to say that the maps weren't good for Halo 4, but it's like a little more variety would be nice from just a visual aesthetic.
Right.
One thing on the aesthetic side I'd like to see as well is the ability of having decals where you can, say, add a UNSC sticker kind of onto an object. So say it could be a building block, it could be a base, it could be a window of some description. Then you can have a whole variety of ones. So you can put in, say, like the logos you have on your shoulder pads on the Spartans. You can put those in, and it just really adds up, for a more, a very open aspect. We can, numbers. You can combine things together. It'd be great for shout-outs, especially for competitive maps. Instead of having it's in blue, it's in purple, it's in green, because even then you have tiny little strips of color, so it can be difficult to see them, especially in bright game types. You can then say it's a number 1, number 2, kind of like Perdition, where it's got the big numbers, you can say where things are.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that would help for callouts a lot, and just being able to spice up your maps visually or do other interesting, unconventional things.
Yeah, well, it's interesting that you mentioned the letters, because I remember for Halo 3, a lot of the competitive maps that were done on Foundry had those A and B plates. Yeah,
sure.
So, I mean, the competitive community would use that to a very, very huge advantage.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the textures in Halo 4 are just way too cluttered in Forge, and they're just busy.
Yeah.
And I'd like to see the textures really, really, really simplified, and then add in those decal options so we can add those accents and visual flares ourselves. And I think that's the way to go.
Yeah, okay,
not so bright, though. Please, not so bright. the building blocks in Halo 4, they are so horrifically bright. It looks like something built in the 1960s, where everything is that pale, concrete, cement horrificness, which it blights the UK here because it's always raining. So it just looks dank and horrible. It looks like we walked out the set 28 days later every day. So I go to Halo 4, I want to make a map, and I'm already depressed because it's like I'm back in my university accommodation.
Gosh, we have a confessional here tonight on the podcast.
So, Pete, you talked about object textures, and that kind of leads me to like probably the biggest point I had going into this whole discussion. I don't know if you were going to get to more of that later, but I think the design of the objects in general, when I look at the forge items in Halo 4, I get the feeling that, if you look at a block, it's like, oh, that's a cool looking block. Like, that looks like a nice thing. But I don't think that it was thought like, how does this look next to 5 other blocks? Mm-hmm. Or next to this other piece with this, glaringly different texture? I think they were thought about as like individual things when that's not really how they're used. So, the blocks have like their rounded edges and it's like, oh, well, that looks really nice. That looks cool. But then you put it next to the other blocks and you like make a wall out of it. And it's like, oh, now your wall has stupid little holes in it. And it's like, these objects their function is to be building pieces, not like they don't have to look good on their own. They have to look good when they're put into this structure. And I think the best way to do that is just to have simple textures, simple shapes that fit together well,
Yes.
And just consistently.
Yeah,
that's huge.
Those false variations in depth is definitely something that's on my list, especially like the Coliseum wall where the edges just drop down for some reason.
Yeah, the Collie walls in Reach were beautiful in their simplicity. And then in the Halo 4 Coliseum wall, it's like you're trying to make a big team map, and because there's no rolling hills, you got to use Coliseum walls for your floors. And it's like, oh boy, this looks terrible. Because it's
playing Gridfall games, it is even worse because actually goes through these things. So if there's a hole in it of a certain size, It's gone through the bottom of the flipping court. So we have, that's it, game over. You got to fix your court.
Yeah.
Well, there's your problem.
And another thing, like if you're trying to, let's say you want to make a room. That's all you want to do. 4 walls, a ceiling, and a floor. And with the objects you're given, everything's going to be the same color. You're going to have white ceiling, white floor, white walls. We need, some different colors here to help us define the space by giving us some variety in colors and textures.
But don't force it on us. Don't have like, oh, well, this piece, has this like, brownish texture, and then like this other piece, is white. Because there was some of that in like Reach. I think maybe even more so than in Halo 4, where it's like this object, looks, it has its own visual identity. And
I think they improved it. I think they improved it a lot with Halo 4, though, because I remember in Halo Reach, whenever you would customize those color options, like if it was like for team color or something, it was hard to see those team colors. But in Halo 4, it's a little bit more prominent.
Right. But then
it was kind of an improvement, but
yeah, but it's still like if you make this room, it's the walls and the ceiling and the floors all look the same. And then with the way dynamic lighting works, and hopefully this could change, because we can't create our own light sources, except with you can place like 2 lights. They kind of have the same problem the FX orbs have, and they're just don't really work that well.
Not very strong.
Yeah. Well, so the best trick I've seen is by the name of Sergeant Slapheads used this trick. He's built in the Griffball Coliseum on erosion, and he's built his map up against like using the ceiling of that as his ceiling, because that ceiling has its own light source. So he can make interior maps using that, and then he still gets its shadows. But other than that, if you want to make an enclosed map with a ceiling, there goes your dynamic lighting. It's gone. It's everything's in shadow.
I think that just goes to more of being able to define how the light environment. So you have like the 3 different kinds of light. I think it's ambient, source, and something else. So being able to kind of alter those 3 different things manually in Forge, I think would be a step in the right direction. I think would that kind of solve some of the issues you're kind of voicing?
Yeah. I mean, well, if you could place, what if we just had ceiling lights or something that put out enough light? Or, I mean, if we could basically just have like the ceiling of our map almost like not recognized by the lighting engine or something, so that we can still have shadows within that.
So you can like define a tag.
Yeah, or different depths of shadow or something. So like, everything's in the shadow because it's enclosed, but then like objects within that cast deeper shadows.
Yeah.
Or something, I mean, there's all kinds of stuff that could be done with that, but yeah, I think that's definitely a big thing. And with moving to a next-gen console, I think it would become much more viable to have that sort of functionality, because like with Halo 4, as it is, and same thing with Reach, I mean, as it is, if you try to make too complex of a map, you're going to have performance issues. So having like lighting and that sort of thing factored into it would add to that. But I think on a next generation tech, we'd be able to, have more options with that.
Yeah, lighting is definitely something that needs to be addressed, and I think 343 knows that, because in Forge Island, the shadows are not as strongly emphasized. Mm-hmm. So I think they're kind of realizing like, this kind of caused some problems on our other campuses.
Right. If only the light source on Forge Island was actually the sun, instead of like on Forge Island, the light source is actually like 20 or 30 degrees below the sun.
Yeah, it's really weird.
So you end up getting like, even though the sun's like more or less overhead. I mean, it's not directly overhead, but the angle of the shadows should be much shallower than it is on there.
It should reflect the actual source of light. Yeah.
Well, yeah. For one thing, just for continuity's sake, but also it's like, more of your map ends up in shadow than it should, because the light source is lower.
Yeah, I want to be able to place that light source. Like, I want it right here. Maybe little light sources I can put in each room, light them up. There's a lot of stuff that can be done to fix it.
Right.
And I'm hoping with the hardware on the Xbox One now, we can get a lot of these features and have a lot more power behind Forge maps and all these different aspects and elements to the Forge system.
Yeah.
At least that's the hope. Did you include anywhere in here about adding AIs?
Very briefly. I
just wanted to mention that because I didn't see it in here anywhere.
The opportunity, I see two opportunities for AI personally. That is turrets. I would really like to see some more versatile turrets that aren't tied directly to like the Dominion game type, something that works everywhere. And then I would think Flood would be a good opportunity to introduce like little Floody AI characters. But a lot of people said, I basically what I got from the community is they want to be able to make firefight maps, and is that going to happen? I really doubt it. Yeah. I think that kind of is more people really miss firefight and they like to see that experience return. So I think I personally I personally kind of keep that separate from Forge.
Right. So, even with Reach, when firefight was there, people still. A lot of people asked for that sort of thing. People said, I want to be able to control AI. But I think, first of all, it's like there's, a lot, I would think, that goes into that on the development side of things. Like, that's probably not easy to obtain. Like, yeah, they edit AI, on their complex development tools. Like, putting that into Forge, adds a lot of complexity to Forge that isn't necessarily necessary. And B, it, I would imagine, is a lot of extra work on their end to add that sort of functionality in. And
well, not to tout taking from another game, but Titanfall has done a very good job with the AI system, I think.
Yeah, but there's no level editor to worry about. It's not, right? I mean, users aren't editing that.
Yeah,
that's a good point. Yeah.
I don't think that the addition of the AI is so much the problem as the addition of giving the user control over it.
Yeah, I was just talking about adding AI, not necessarily controlling it, or maybe just being able to give weights to where the AI kind of leans towards, maybe. But I'm just more like adding AI and kind of changing up the experience a little bit.
So, I mean...
Anyways, I just wanted to throw that out there to derail.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of ideas there. I don't think there's a general consensus among the community. I think custom geometry is a big problem for AI. So that's why I'm thinking more turrets, stuff that's stationary, stuff that's easy to implement, that can still add some flair to even traditional experiences, but really help out custom games that are a little more off the ball.
Yeah.
Got it.
So the next section I had was tool improvements. Now, there's two big ones. I don't even think I need to talk about them. Precision editing
Yep.
And monitor zoom.
Oh, okay. I thought you were going to talk about magnet functionality, but
magnets are another thing.
Yeah. Well, magnets just could be improved.
Yeah.
Monitor zoom needs to return.
Yeah, I mean, those are two features that we had in Halo Reach. Just bring the features back. I think 343 needs to do that to be taken seriously. Not that precision editing really matters, because we still have object rotational drift, which I would really like to see fixed. And what that is like when you save a map and you reload that map, your objects will slightly rotate just a tiny little bit, and you won't even really notice unless you're trying to make a flat floor for like a griff ball map or something.
Frustrating.
But it's so frustrating. And then it's like, it makes Forge not a precision tool. So why does precision editing matter? Well, the community still wants it. I think they need to bring it back, but I think they also need to fix that object rotational drift so it actually matters.
It's that and the earthquake type, where you get, if you're in a forge with two people, and then you save it, you go back into it, and oh great, an earthquake has just suddenly struck the map, and everything's.
You need
absolute rage.
You need the connection host to save it, because everything the connection host sees when they save, that's what it's saved as.
That's why it never works for me then.
Right. Well, yeah. So it makes co-forging difficult, but yeah, like Pete said, there is still that drift, and I think that's gotten better since Reach. Maybe, I don't know. I notice it less, but I don't know.
I spent like an hour and a half with Knockyard making a flat floor, and it just blew my mind the steps that he goes through to make flat floors for Griffball maps that are actually legit flat. It's crazy. He's found a way to do it, which is awesome, and that's good. But the hoops that he has to jump through to do this should not be necessary.
Right. Yeah, I mean, it's easy to see when you if you have two objects inside of each other and you have, them set up so that like the texture on one object is visible, above the other. This is hard to explain, but like, so you're avoiding Z fighting, you're avoiding the texture overlap, glitchiness. And then you save it, and then when you load it up again, those textures are fighting, are overlapping.
The accursed Z fight.
Yep.
Yeah.
A lot of frame rate issues with that too.
Probably the most requested feature that I came across was grouping. Let us group Forge objects together, move them together as one thing, duplicate them. That way you can make, if you have a symmetrical map, make half of it, group it, duplicate it, flip it over, you're done.
I mean, grouping's been in Office.
Take some of the fun out of it.
Oh, no.
Grouping objects has been in Microsoft Office since like Office 98, so...
I'm making a 3-way symmetrical map right now. I want to have to repeat myself twice. But no, that's a big feature. And I think if you talk about like adding decals to objects, that's kind of like taking one object and like putting it on the other and like combining them. So I think that something similar could, if that's in there, then you could kind of do the same thing with just grouping like blocks together or whatever.
And it'd be interesting if they do something like that, though, is that you can, whenever it saves, it references that sticker or whatever based off of the object you attach it to and not just globally. Because a lot of the objects that you place are globally set, where I think it might help do some relative settings. So if you want to attach it to a certain geometry, then you have all this stuff that's relative to this point. Like you can do in Office. I mean, there's a lot of stuff in Office that you can apply here, I think. with the grouping and the relative positioning and all that stuff. They have the technology.
Right.
Yep. Another thing I'd like to see is the ability to make walls invisible. This is something that 343 can already do. And there's actually a glitch. It was mentioned here on Podtacular not too recently. A glitch in Capture the Flag where you can make a wall invisible, but a player can't pass through it. That would be awesome for setting up boundaries on your map, putting a ceiling on the map so jetpackers can't fly out of it, but they can't see the ceiling. They can't shoot the ceiling. It just physically stops them. Doesn't generate lighting. It's just to stop players and stop objectives from escaping of space. It would be great for Griffball, so you could have a big open field.
Griffball court.
Yeah, exactly. you know, all
Okay, I'll
kinds
get
of
on
stuff.
this.
That would be trippy.
Yeah, there's a Griffball map, Hangar 101, that kind of uses this. It has like kind of a force field effect, but it's I think a 5x5 flat that 343 made invisible, and then they just added a nice little effect. But you can't walk through it, and you can't throw the ball through it, but you can shoot through it.
How do you know it's a 5x5? I spent like a long time looking at that with some other guys because they're like, "Come look at this! Like it's an invisible piece. What is it?" And they were all kind of speculation. We never figured out exactly what it was.
I think Knockyard told me it was a 5x5 because he kind of measured it some way.
Oh, okay.
I could be wrong, but I think that's what he said it was.
Yeah.
So another issue that was first introduced with Halo 4 was objects won't spawn if a player, vehicle, or turret is nearby.
Yeah.
And that is the bane of my existence. You know.
Yep.
It's just frustrating and unnecessary. Let's get rid of that. If a player is in the way of my block spawning, just spawn that block on that player. Kill him. I don't care. Just spawn that block.
Yeah, killed by the Guardians.
Yeah.
And maybe we get to figure out who those Guardians are in Halo 5.
That ruined so many maps off launch where people were, I know like Oakley High Def was trying to remake 5 levels of Terror where he needs like a teleporter to spawn in to move you to the next level of Terror. And, the teleporter wasn't spawning in. We were like, what the freaking hell is going on here? You know, like, and then eventually we figured it out. When Flying Shoe and I made Conversion, which was our like invasion-esque one-sided 3-phase game mode a while ago, you know, we had all this crazy stuff going on with, you know, pieces spawning in to cover up spawn points so you could make this progressive spawning system and all that. But it's like, oh, well, if there's someone standing 2 feet away, you know, it won't spawn it. It doesn't work. And it's, you know, frustrating.
Yeah. Talking about spawning, some improvements for the spawn system. Let us spawn objects longer than 180 seconds out. So if we want to spawn something 5 minutes into a game, let us do that. A very cool idea from the community was a despawn timer. So have something spawn at 25 seconds, have it disappear at 45 seconds.
Yep.
That would be really cool. And the last thing about spawning was instead of having the playset spawn as true or false, just have an initial spawn time. This would give us initial spawn, respawn, and despawn. So you could have something with an initial spawn of 30 seconds. It'll show up at 30 seconds, has a despawn time of maybe 15 seconds. So after it shows up at 30 seconds, it'll disappear at 45 seconds and then have a respawn timer of 1 minute. So then at like 1 minute 45, it'll come back. But the big key, the key there is the initial spawn and the respawn are different. And right now you can't do that because the playset start is the respawn timer. So if you could just replace playset start true false with initial spawn time, that would let you do a lot of cool stuff.
Yeah. That'd be nice.
That actually is really would have a lot of Forge ideas off of that. A lot of custom kind of games to go off of that.
Yeah, that's something that's been talked about for a long time. Was, you know, in Invasion, with invasion labeling, you could actually despawn objects when it switched to the next phase. But, you know, it's not there anymore, you know, and that's one of those things that's like in one mode that could be in every mode. I mean, I think what you say about initial respawn and despawn timers would make a lot of sense.
So who wants to say undo?
Me.
Yes.
I thought about mentioning that.
Undo button. Everybody wants an undo button.
Yep.
It's so simple.
Well,
how have they not thought of this?
I don't know.
I think the reason they said they couldn't do the undo button is because of how they tracked what objects were being put into Forge. And so if you were to undo after maybe someone else put something in, you would undo that instead.
Right.
I don't think they implemented that kind of tracking to do it on a per user basis, but maybe the power of the Azure distributed system that the Xbox One's running on, maybe they can track that a little bit better.
I mean, we've gotten along without it. We'll survive if we don't get it, but it would be really nice.
It would save. Yeah. It would save from having to not save, quit out, and then go back in, right?
Yeah, I mean, Forge in Halo 5 is not going to survive or fail based on the existence of an undo button, but it's just this is some stuff that would really make a difference. People would love it. It's a common request.
Or give it an undo button just for if only one person's in Forge.
Disable it with 2. Yeah. Well, because I think that's an undo button seems weird in a tool that allows like multiple people to interact in it in real time. But I guess at the same time, if you go into like a Google Docs, you can have multiple people editing stuff, but you can Control Z in there,
Yep.
So
it's definitely possible.
Yeah.
Yep. Train editor was a big request. I mean, we could get a straight up train editor. I don't think it fits Forge. Forge is like playing with Legos, and Train Editor is like playing with Play-Doh, and I don't like Play-Doh in my Legos. I'm sorry, Mega Blocks. But
there we go.
Sure, I wouldn't be unhappy if we got a Train Editor, but I think really expanding the natural terrain palette would be sufficient if they gave us rolling hills. And I keep thinking back to like I used to play real-time strategy games like Command and Conquer, and they had map editors, and you had you could make cliffs and stuff like that with these pre-built little like cliff pieces, and you just built them to put them together, and you can make a box canyon like Blood Gulch really easily if you had prefab
red versus blue pieces. All over again.
Yeah. Oh, man. I mean, I just think they really need to invest in the natural palette.
Yeah, I would actually rather see that than a terrain editor. Because, there's like a distinction between what Forge is and what like a professional development software toolset is, and it's like, I think that line, that distinction is a big part of that is like terrain editing. I think that, having that functionality in Forge would be cool, but at the same time it kind of loses some of the like cuteness of Forge. There's multiple opinions on that. There's some people that say, take out the limitations, give us a fully fledged map editor. I don't know that
I think you're kind of touching on the like having people be creative within the confines of a system.
Yeah, I think that's part of the fun of Forge, part of the challenge. And it's like if Forge has these limitations, and as long as the limitations aren't arbitrarily placed in like weird, ways, if the limitations are just like natural, like logical things, then it creates a challenge. If they're like just weird things like, even if I place this floor, it's not going to be flat because of object drift, like that's stupid. Mm-hmm. That's just like arbitrary limitation. But having some inherent limitations in the thing, I'm okay with that. I don't need this huge map editor tool.
Well,
it'd be cool, but
I think just kind of thinking through this, I think one of the reasons why we may be kind of requesting that is because some of the maps that we got aren't easily forgeable. Like you can't. I think, like take Exile for example. There's not much you can really do to change the flow of Exile per se, without like just completely blocking off stuff. And I think doing a terrain editor will give you some like extra flow control that may be interesting to have on a certain map.
Yeah,
like making a hill to where you block off some key viewing angles, maybe something like that.
In my mind, it's two different ways to accomplish the same thing. There should be nothing that you can't do in a... Wait, how am I trying to say this? Whatever you can do in a terrain editor, you should be able to do using objects from this hypothetical enhanced natural palette.
Right.
Yeah, that's true. To the whole terrain editor point, though, kind of pulling off of what the Halo CE community has done. I mean, there's a lot of maps, and there's some really talented map makers who have gone in with like 3ds Max and made some awesome maps. Yeah. I mean, one of the teams I can think of is Custom Map Team. I mean, they make some pretty awesome multiplayer maps, and they've redone the campaign thousands of times over. It'd be cool to see some kind of system or development piece that you can maybe purchase, like make it inexorably expensive if you want to make it to where the people that really know how to make maps can go out and get it, and have them develop those kind of experiences. Because there's a very healthy custom map community within the Halo Custom Edition community. And it would be nice, it'd be really cool to see some of those people use their talent on a current generation game instead of a game that came out more than 10 years ago. Personally, I think it'd be cool to see some of the people that have designed some of those maps come into Halo 5 and be like, we got some really interesting ideas of what we can make with terrain and really develop new maps. I mean, it would make it easier. I mean, it's free labor essentially for 343 and Certain Affinity, and maybe have certain teams within those companies that will approve maps, like go through and test it, and then once it passes certain criteria, then it's like, okay, we'll import this into the game.
Well, there's been talk of like, okay, what if we had this external development toolkit map editor that maybe would be on your PC, but then you could import your creations into the game or something. And I think that's interesting. Like, some people talk about like, oh, we could have that and it could replace Forge. Some people say, oh, it could coexist with Forge. I think that if it coexisted with Forge, it would kind of polarize the community, because then there'd be forgers and then there'd be map
creators.
Yeah. And then you get some weird, I don't quite know how that would work out, but I don't know that it would be good. But if it replaced Forge, then it's like, or if that's what Forge evolved into, which I don't think that is really a natural evolution of Forge. That would be kind of a really jarring transition.
Yeah, that's definitely not an evolution of Forge. That's completely different.
Right.
But I'm just saying there is some talent in that arena that it would be cool to see with Halo 5.
Yeah, no doubt.
Another thing on my list is the ability to make all boundaries visible at once, whether it's a safe boundary or a hill or a kill boundary. That would really help with making a traditional multiplayer map. You want to put it in matchmaking, you want to make sure it's watertight, and being able to see all the kill boundaries at once, make sure all the areas are covered, would be really handy.
Yeah, that would be nice, because I know going through and like editing kill zones on a map, say it just got approved to go into matchmaking, and it's like, okay, you need to make sure that's not breakable. And then you're like, oh, okay, got to do kill zones, and then you like have to hop out of Forge into custom games, grab a jetpack, and then like try to fly out of the map and like find if there's any holes or whatever. That could be streamlined big time.
Yeah, and to take that a step further, something that didn't occur to me to just now, but maybe make it so if all the hills are visible, they also function in Forge. So maybe you get that return to battlefield timer when you're standing in a hill in Forge. That would make it really easy to test. Yeah.
Yeah, that would be nice.
Yeah. So another thing that I had under tool improvements is I'd really like to see some general game type labels that are part of Forge and not adhered to specific game types. Like, for example, the invisible wall thing that we talked about, having an invisible game type label, you just apply it to that wall, bam, it's invisible. I'd like to see stuff like maybe being able to make objects invulnerable, which is a feature in multi-team Ricochet. Maybe I want that in Capture the Flag or something.
Right.
Let's pull it out of the game type, make it just basically when you go into a map with basic editing, I want the ability to use these game type labels and have them function in every game type.
Yeah, like leave, game type labels for things like labeling, the flag and Capture the Flag, or the goal and Ricochet. But then aside from that, make the labels this universal thing where it's like you said, invisible, invincible, whatever other label.
I'd like to see.
That would be really nice.
I'd really like to see gravity volumes and player trait zones converted to game type labels instead of objects. So I can make a hill throw the gravity volume game type label on there, and I can make that hill whatever size I want, and it functions as a gravity volume.
Yeah, that would be great.
Maybe I throw the game type label on it, or I'm sorry, the game type label of a player trait zone on that warthog, and now the person driving that warthog has the characteristics as I define it, instead of having this, static hill trait zone that is good for like one thing and one thing only.
Right. On that front, talking about trait zones, in Halo 4, when maps are put into matchmaking, like I don't know the exact details, and I don't want to like say the wrong thing, but so they're kind of like run through this engine that like rewrites them as this new file, I guess. So, and when they go through that, trait zones don't function. When they come out the other end, trait zones are gone or don't work or whatever. So in Halo 4 matchmaking, there's no trait zones. And I don't know if that applies to anything else, but just having, knowing that, you can put this trait zone on your map. And then when you go into matchmaking, like using trait zones to create like a soft ceiling on a map, is great, but you can't do that in matchmaking. Yeah. So yeah, that sort of thing would be nice.
That's where that invisible wall comes in handy.
Oh, right. Yeah, I mean, that would work as well.
Invisible wall.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, and there's other game type labels, like the parent-child game type label is really popular in modding. I'd like to see official support for that, where you can attach objects to other objects. It's kind of like grouping, but it functions in game. So you can attach a block to like a warthog, and now your warthog drives around with a block attached to it.
Right.
Do all the just married pictures.
There you go.
Would it be something that?
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, if you were to attach something like that, though, would you want it to change the physics of the thing that you attach it to? So if you do like attach a block, would it have a weight?
No.
Okay. I'm just wondering, because it's one of those things that's like you could definitely introduce some interesting physics into doing stuff like that.
Yeah.
I just want to like attach a little traffic cone to the hood of my warthog and have like a uniform on.
Yeah.
That'd be great. But on that front, talking about like labels that exist maybe within the modding community that we don't have, is player controlled switches.
Mm-hmm.
I walk up to this object, I hit X, and that object over there disappears or despawns,
Yep.
Like, and then you have one-sided game modes again, like we talked about earlier, one flag, territories, that sort of thing. And then you can do things like the
Zanzibar.
The Zanzibar, the high ground, total FU exceptions.
With the doors, yeah.
At your location.
It'd be cool. It'd be cool to have objects that are specifically switchable. So where you like can link a switch to something.
Yeah.
Like a door.
Kind of like how teleporters use their channels.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, exactly.
You
just have switch channels.
Have switch channels, and then one option would be if it just like could despawn or spawn an object. Another option that comes out of like Dominion is if you could, rather than in Dominion you have these barricades that fortify and whatnot, and then when you capture that base terminal they fortify. Well, what if we could just have a switch that like made that barricade fold out or fold down? Like, that would be great, because then you can make doors out of that open and close, so it's not, like, goofy, like, having an object despawn and respawn.
Mm-hmm.
Machinima.
Absolutely.
Yeah, all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, I'm definitely with you on that one. I think switches would be an excellent addition to the Forge system.
Mm.
And one little aside while we're talking about all these physics things and dynamic objects, I would really like for all physics options to be optional for all objects and work in game. So if I put down like a block, I would like that block to be able to have normal physics, where if I'm playing Capture the Flag and I ram it with my Warthog, it moves.
It moves. That'd be nice.
Or maybe I want that Warthog and I want to put that thing on fixed physics and turn it into a turret, and now you can't drive it anywhere. It's stuck. It won't move.
Yeah. I think that comes out of Halo 3 when, initially in Halo 3 before Foundry, we didn't have any stationary objects whatsoever. And then with Foundry, it introduced, you couldn't switch between phased, normal or fixed. So like the objects were normal, all those foundry objects, but when you let go of them, they would settle after like a second, and then they would become immovable. So I think that code is kind of still applied to other objects on normal physics. So like if you set a block down on normal physics, it settles and then becomes, or at least when you save it, it becomes immobile.
Yeah, but there's objects like in Halo 4, the grid, it can have normal physics in game, and so it'll just sit there and wibble wobble.
And then your Xbox will explode.
That's only in Forge. If you ever want to screw up somebody when they're forging, join their Forge game and spawn a grid and just spin that thing. Their frame rate will drop like nothing.
My personal favorite is I liked doing this in Reach. I'd spawn both the grids, merge them into the island, this the most complex natural geometry on the map, and then set them both to normal physics, and then they're just, game over. Your Xbox is done. It's frozen like one frame per 15 seconds, basically.
One thing that you can do that's really funny with the duplicate option in Halo 4 is take like a building and set it to normal physics, and then pound that duplicate button as fast as you can, and you will make like this crazy worm of like intertwined buildings, and it's pretty good. It'll like wibble, bounce around the map and stuff, and the frame rate's dropping like crazy.
Right.
So aside from that, the next section I had was palette improvements.
You guys are cruel a little bit. Dang.
Hey, you got to entertain yourself somehow.
That is true. That's true.
About the palette, the most obvious thing, fix the Forge budget. It's arbitrary. It doesn't make sense. And nothing says that better than like the special objects that launched on the special Forge canvases with Halo 4. Like, why does this, like the Impact giant space base room, like why is that? Wasn't it like $10 or something like that?
Oh yeah, and then other things that are huge and super complex weird objects cost 100 or 150 or whatever. Yeah. It is arbitrary because it's like, obviously Forge has these natural limitations. If you put too many objects on a map that render at the same time, that are all visible at the same time, you will get frame rate drops. But it's like, the budget, like the amount and object cost is not tied to that. It's not really representative of that. And so, it ends up being arbitrary. You're forging this big team map and you're like, oh man, I got to use all these walls and blocks. And then you run out of walls because you're only given 50.
So it would probably be better to leave that up to the developer of the map then to make sure that there aren't frame rate issues.
Right.
And then if it is something that goes into matchmaking, that's where you guys, the community cartographers, go in and test and make sure that, okay, does this map run? Yes. Does it run with two people running on the same Xbox? Right. Yes. Mm-hmm. Okay. It's good for matchmaking.
Yeah, and that should get easier with better technology, I would think, Xbox One.
Right.
Leave that to the forger, because you can have a map where you use a quarter of your budget and you have horrendous frame rate lag. Mm-hmm. Or you can have a map where you use your entire budget and, and there's nothing wrong. And you've just hit this arbitrary limitation for no reason.
Yeah, because all you're doing is spawning grenades and weapons instead of big geometry.
Yeah.
And that's another thing is... Sorry.
No, you got it.
That was another thing, too, is the limitations of how many like grenades that you can use or put out. I would like to see that increase, personally.
Yeah.
And some of the other weapons, too.
All of those, just the numbers. You can have 50 walls. You can have 100 blocks. You can have, 20 buildings. You can have 50 natural. 12 So you can't.
Can we get more teleporters,
Chiron.
Please?
I want to make Chiron.
Yeah.
Yes.
Everyone wants
well.
Chiron.
So I made Chiron in Halo 3, actually. I did where some of the teleporters were just shield doors instead of teleporters.
That's not it. Yeah. That doesn't count.
Yeah, that's been done, but it's not the same.
I was pretty impressed with my Chiron recreation in Foundry.
Yeah.
Just saying. Although I'm not expert forgers like you. Yes, in Foundry. I mean,
that's impressive in itself.
Yeah.
But
I'll have to show you guys.
Why these limitations? Like, I'd be interested to know how are these picked in the first place? Because it feels like, you know, in Reach, Bungie sat down, they picked these limitations, and then most of them were carried over.
Copy paste.
To this game, because it's like, okay, why do we still only get 50 walls? You know, what if I want to make this, you know, urban map, and I want to have these like towering skyscrapers around my map, you know, made out of like Colosseum walls, and it's like, oh well, okay, you can do a little bit of that, but you only have 50 walls. Why 50? Why not? I mean, at least give us like, you give us 100 blocks. Why can't we have 100 walls? Or
Well,
you know,
I would like to see the quantity limitation just abolished and have the item cost reflect the performance. So you can have, you know, 500 walls if you don't use anything else.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that just makes a lot more sense.
Yeah. And another thing, like, I can only place 8 warthogs, and and if I want 16, I have to place 8 scorpion tanks, and then go into game type settings and set vehicle set. Well, just let me place 16 warthogs. Just make my life easier, please.
Instead of because there's a workaround for that. You can get 16 warthogs on the map.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, it's not like the engine can't, you know, support it for some reason. It's just, there's just this hard limit for, you know, whatever arbitrary reason.
Yeah. So we covered a lot of the stuff in this section already. One thing was the custom size blocks. You know, give us a block that we can define the width, the height, the length. So if we want to make, you know, a nice flat floor or something like that, we can just use one block, define its shape, and we're done.
That would be great.
Mm-hmm.
Just like with hill volumes, you know, length, width, height, sorry. And I mean, I understand there's probably some, you know, when it's creating this object, it needs to have a collision mesh that expands as you expand the object, and B, the texture needs to not like stretch and get all wonky. But I think that could be worked around easily enough. That would be so nice if you could just basically place like a hill volume, but it's actually this hard block, or if you want, it's invisible. Like we were talking about earlier, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. One thing that I thought would be really cool is damage boundaries. Kind of like a kill boundary, but instead of just killing a player outright, it just causes constant damage to them to the point that they'll die, which is why trade zones wouldn't work. It actually has to damage players to the point that it'll kill them. And the reason I want this in my brain is I want to envelop an entire map in a damage boundary. And then I want to accent it with stuff like hills that have invulnerable player traits.
Sure.
So you have to get inside that hill, otherwise you're going to die. But you're not going to die from like the return to battlefield timer or like an instant kill boundary. You're going to have a few seconds while you're getting damaged.
Yeah, that'd be really interesting. Interesting minigame potential for sure. And I mean, like, you can have in a trade zone, you can have like shield drain, but once your shields are gone, you know, you can't actually do anything more than that.
Yeah, you're just going to be standing there with no shields.
Right.
So I would really like that. It would make a lot of the things that I've worked on much easier. And I think it would work for traditional multiplayer maps too. Maybe you have like a radiation tunnel that's a shortcut between the bases. You're going to get hurt if you go through it, but it's a shortcut.
It's faster.
Maybe it's worth it.
Yeah. I know, you know, that's why I brought up like the shield drain. Like, I know Faded Fire has done this a lot on, you know, he'll have his like acid pits and it'll drain your shields, which is cool. But, you know, it would be nice if you could actually drain, you know, help or just damage the players. Yeah, that would be cool.
Man cannons are a big issue in Halo 4. Like they're so inconsistent. I think the best, what I'd really like to see happen with man cannons is have them have, like in Halo Reach, they were almost always consistent. They would put you in one spot when you went through them. Not 100% of the time, but most of the time. I would really like to see them like 100%. You go into that man cannon, it doesn't matter what direction you walk into it, what speed, whether you're jumping, crouching, whatever, you're going to land in this one spot. And give us a visible player path. Maybe even let us define where the player lands when they walk into that man cannon, but really just make them consistent.
Either that, with like the defining it, and maybe there's some code-based limitation on this that I don't understand. But if we could just have this man cannon, we place it and we can say, and it says like thrust or power or whatever, and you can say low, medium, high, super, whatever, and just affect our own, instead of having like a light man cannon and then this like other like, a heavy man cannon, and then it's like, if you want anything heavier than that, well, you're screwed. It's like, can we, and again, maybe there's some, limitation on that. I don't quite understand, but if we could do that, I think that'd be really nice.
Yeah, what it's come down to is I've tried to use man cannons in maps. I had a really, I thought, cool idea for a map, and I ended up having to throw it out because the man cannons were so unreliable, players were just falling to their death.
Yeah.
It was disappointing. So some kind of solution for man cannons. Those are my ideas for how to fix them, but they need to be consistent.
Yeah, agreed.
So we talked about turrets. I like turrets. I would like to be able to, have things shoot at things. You could do a lot of stuff with that. I'd like to be able to have a turret that exists at the start of a game. You can customize what weapon it fires, whether it's invulnerable. I think it'd be a lot of fun.
How accurate it is, how much damage it has.
Range. Yeah, that'd be cool.
Yeah,
you could remake a snowbound where if you go beyond the bounds.
Oh, yes.
Exactly.
That'd be cool. That'd be really cool.
Yeah, I mean, we have the Dominion turrets, and they work outside of Dominion to an extent, but they have to be owned. They still have to be built, right? Yeah. So they still have to be built. If we could just maybe give us a turret, and we could say, it could be like a Dominion turret. You could attach it to a switch, like we were talking about player-controlled switches, or you could just have it like be there and be this just evil death turret, like on Snowbound, that just kills everyone.
Maybe you could have like a respawn timer on it too, or like after it gets destroyed, it'll respawn after so many minutes or seconds.
Yeah,
it'd be nice to choose what you could fire as well. So you could say you could fire if you're utterly insane rockets, or you can have it just fire magnum rounds.
Yeah.
EMP rounds from, say, an overcharged plasma pistol, it just fires those. So imagine that in a big team battle game type. You're trying to take the flag in a one game type with a Warthog, and you just keep getting EMP'd because the opposing team have managed to get out and they've managed to hit the button.
Yeah, there'd definitely be some interesting potential in that.
Yeah. I think it's something that would work for traditional maps. I think it would work for really fun, wacky ideas.
Yeah. Yeah, no doubt.
So there's some other ideas here, like a water block. It'd be nice to be able to place water. We talked about acid pits.
Yeah.
Maybe give us an acid block that it's not solid. You can kind of sink into it or something like that.
I want an animation of a Spartan melting.
Yeah, there you go.
Well, they have that if you get hit by any of the Forerunner weapons in Halo 4. You disintegrate.
I think
not exactly melting.
Well, okay, if you want.
The term I like for that is exfoliated with extreme prejudice.
Fitting.
Would making Spartans be able to actually walk in water be something for you guys?
Yeah,
people love water.
Well,
this armor is designed to go out to the void of space. It's designed to go to certain temperatures, but as soon as it gets just a little bit wet, you die.
We all know Master Chief doesn't know how to swim. It's been that way forever.
Is the armor made of iron? Does it just instantly corrode, instantly rust?
Well, it is. I mean, if you think about the physics are different because in space, you're trying to make sure that stuff doesn't fly out, or with underwater, you're making sure it doesn't fly in.
We're at a depth of about 2 feet. I don't think pressure's too bad.
Yeah, I know. I'm just I'm just taking it to the extremes, but I think being able to...
They have an oceanic armor. They have an armor type called
That's true.
Oceanic.
That's very
designed
true.
for deep sea battle. Why?
Very true.
Well, okay, so here's something on that front.
You can swim in plasma in Halo 1, and in the campaign you were in
really?
pools of plasma. Yeah, whenever you fell down out of the Covenant ship that was leaking plasma.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Sure. So, okay, in Forge World, in Reach, you could interact with the water, and you could go to a certain depth. You could actually get fully submerged in it without dying, but it was
barely.
Yeah.
Like maybe
right.
0.3, I think, points on the measurement. Yeah.
Yeah.
You can do it in 4, but only on longbow, and you get this really weird shadow zone effect. It's kind of like everything's like it is really weird, as if you're in another dimension, because everything is completely shadowed. But that's the only place I've seen it. But it's a very, very small area of play to go in.
Right. Well, and you can glitch under the water on Forge Island, but you can't interact with the water. So, like, I think with, again, next gen technology, it would be even more plausible. Like on, Forge World, you had like little puddles, and you could toss grenades in them, and it would actually, have a splash and stuff, and you could shoot the water, and you could have a splash, and you could wade in the water. In Halo 4, like on Forge Island, it's like you can wade in the water, but that water is just this like static thing. It's only visible,
Right.
I think the only place that does that, I think, is Longbow, because it was designed for that, but that's it.
Yeah. Yeah. So
well, and nice. The Valhalla remake.
Oh, on Ragnarok.
Yeah.
Yeah, you do get a spray trail on that, because I got a couple of screenshots from the race game type when it first came out in January. That featured quite a few kind of spray trails going along that kind of seal.
Yeah. And then another thing was sound and particle emitters, smoke, fire. Yeah. I think what it all comes down to is people want to make spaces that look and feel unique visually.
Right.
You want to be able to add. What was that?
Singing sirens, so kind of like in Perdition, where you get that siren constantly going off. So you go into a certain area, say where there's you could theme, with the acid pits, there's been a leaking or something, so you get an alarm going off when you go into this area.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I think a lot of that would kind of contribute to machinima people as well, because you do have that environment that you can create and customize within Forge.
Yeah.
And we're going to have another podcast specifically for like machinima, and we'll get Nevin Douglas and a couple other machinimators on as well. But a lot of those things, while it does provide some of the uniqueness to a particular map, it does serve quite a purpose for machinima.
Well, and sound cues are, a big thing.
Are huge, yeah.
Competitive play. If I think the main
gravity
example,
lifts are one thing.
Right, grav lifts, exactly. So that's like the, right now, if you hear someone go off a grav lift, maybe if you can have these man cannons that you can edit, like light thrust or heavy thrust or whatever, maybe we could make them silent or not silent. Because, sometimes you actually want a silent lift, depending on...
camping in Adrift. People just waiting in that lift.
Yeah.
Yeah, so having, being able to build in other sonic cues, maybe if you could attach them to a timer, that'd be cool. I think a lot of the stuff we're talking about now is kind of more along the lines of it would be nice.
Exactly.
Rather than it needs to be there.
Yeah.
But it would be, that'd be really cool. Just let us breathe more life into our maps. Have maybe moving parts, just things that are,
give it character.
Yeah.
I mean, you can one object can totally change Forge. I mean, people back in when was it introduced? Halo 3 when we got the tin cup. Is that when we got it?
That was introduced on Sandbox. Yeah.
Yeah, that was Sandbox.
They flip it upside down, and now you got grass, and people love grass. Grass is awesome. So just give us like even one grassy texture block, one rocky texture block. People will use this stuff, and it'll give us a chance to have some real visual variety.
Yeah.
So you want a sod texture, essentially. They can lay down sod everywhere for grass.
It'd be good stuff. I mean, they kind of screwed up the tin cup in Halo 4 because it's got that invisible wall on it, and it's a mess.
Or AstroTurf. You could have the AstroTurf texture.
Yeah, sand, snow. I mean, something.
Well,
Sandcastle competitions.
If you're talking about like two things we talked about earlier, one being able to customize blocks to different dimensions, and two talking about being able to apply different textures to blocks or to to the object palette, like be it Forerunner or UNSC or whatever. If you kind of combined those and said, okay, what if if you can create this block of this size and shape, can we just apply grass or whatever, sand or rock or concrete?
Yeah. Were you gonna say something?
Yeah, so I was thinking there's one that was not on the list because it was one I think I suggested when you first made it. It's a mirroring option. You find with staircases, you want to put a staircase in, and then you want to put another one next to it, so you can make like two staircases linking together. They don't allow you to do that because you can only have it in one shape. So it'd be nice to have just this tool to just mirror something, and immediately the part is mirrored, so the staircase is on the other side, but it's going into a slightly different direction, so you can actually put these two pieces together to make like the central reservation for a bridge, so it'd be perfect for if you're making a Narrows remake, or if you're doing Boardwalk from Reach, you can actually put in that central staircase, so you can come from either side, it'd be the same direction, going up together. It'd be great for like a central piece if you had four sets of staircases all going up to one major platform. You can then have a great King of the Hill game type there, neutral flag, because that has driven me to absolute craziness. Just try to find an option, or just try it then either flipping it upside down, then it's a skinnier way up rather than an actual ramp. But it is a really frustrating thing I'd really like to see, because it would just really open up the option for symmetrical maps and for just making, central pieces.
So you're talking about how like the staircase object is asymmetrical, and how I think that just goes back to like thinking of objects not on their own, but thinking about like, oh well, how will this fit into a larger structure with other objects? And it's like, if you look at the staircase object, it's like that was not thought about. No. It was thought about as, let's make a staircase, not as let's make a staircase that can be used in other ways than the singular use that we have in our head right now.
Yeah, in my mind, I see those really defined building pieces being better off chopped up into little sections. Like here's a straight staircase, and then here's a one that goes left or goes right, and then you have that mirrored ability. You can build that together using different pieces. You don't necessarily have to have one big block that's all complete.
Sure.
But that is something that a lot of people talked about, being able to mirror. I mean, there's different solutions. You can just throw in a mirror ability, or you can chop those pieces up into smaller parts that can be used to make a mirrored structure.
I would say just don't make any of the objects like asymmetrical unless you're going to give a mirror image of it also. Because that's just, it's silly.
Just have, say, staircase left and staircase right.
Yeah. Or just a staircase that, works either way, because it doesn't wrap around. And then you can, if you want to build a staircase that has a landing on it that wraps around, you can. But, you don't have to.
Probably the most ridiculous thing that I had on this list, and I included it, this is the most fantastical thing, I don't expect it. It's just kind of a cool idea. Someone said this, and I was like, okay. It's the idea of a core block.
My idea.
That was your idea?
That was my suggestion, yeah.
Totally great idea. It's just like a block that makes a hole in other blocks. So if you have a Colosseum wall, you can use this block to make a doorway in the middle of it. In my mind, you can use this to make holes in the pre-existing map geometry, so you can have a tunnel that goes through a cliff or goes underground or something like that. I think it's a really cool idea.
It's just the idea of making a walkway where you could just suddenly have a drop. So say, I think it was Construct in Halo 3 where you had those walkways, but with just a teensy little drop where you can go to the shotgun spawn. It's just that these small drops, trying to forge them in is difficult enough where you're going to have to use like a building block rather than a bridge piece, but then you try and it just doesn't fit perfectly because one is slightly higher than the other. So you try to throw a grenade in game and then it just hits that little bridge and that's it. It's stuck there. So it'd be nice just to have that little ability, maybe in Colosseums, the cliff option, I think it's Rock 4 in Forge Island, and then maybe setting a limit to say, you cannot core this far if, there's like, say, 1 unit, less than 1 unit there, so it's going to be too skinny.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah, I like the idea of having curve blocks and that kind of stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. So this list, there's a couple more things on here. They're real small, just different objects. But, I mean, some of this stuff is really important. Some of it is not important. The idea here was just to make a list of, here's a bunch of ideas. I think they're all good ideas. We don't necessarily need to have them all, but, consider it. And that was the goal. And so I sent this off to 343, and we'll see what happens when we find out what's going on with Halo 5 and Forge.
I think that custom power-up item is a big one.
Yeah, that's big that came from the competitive side. I think Psycho Duck, I think that might have even came from you or Faded.
Yeah, maybe. I know I chimed in a couple times when you were making that list, but yeah. just having, I mean, if we have trait zones, why can't we have apply traits to an individual, like that? And that is big in, you could use it in anything. But yeah, definitely from a competitive standpoint of having a power up, well, I don't want it to give you camo, or I don't want it to give you an overshield. I want it to give you, these specific traits, and, now I can do that.
Uh-huh.
And you could do that in Reach and in Halo 3. So maybe Halo 2, maybe not.
And then the ammo crates idea, I think, is pretty cool.
Yeah.
So Q&A for those that are in the live stream right now. First one we have is from Pins Halo. He says, if Forge had all the abilities you needed, what map from another game would you want to make in Forge?
Ooh.
I'm assuming we're talking not just specifically Halo, but maybe maps in other games as well.
Yeah.
So again, how many maps from GoldenEye I'd like to see, or from Time Splitters?
Team Fortress 2.
Yeah,
For me personally.
Not to be a Debbie Downer, but I think, we've always had that potential to recreate spaces from other games in Forge. Being able to do that with more detail, and, that's different. But the thing is, if you take a map that was designed for Gears of War and you put it in Halo, it's not going to play right, because in Gears, the way a player moves and takes cover, and the way their weapons work, and just everything. I mean, every detail is just completely different. And then you just try to copy that into Halo, and it's really silly, If you take something from a game that's maybe a bit more similar to Halo, like a Quake or something like that, there's more potential there, but it's still, we've always been able to do that. And I think, like, in Reach, especially, the sort of 1v1 Forge crowd took a lot of inspiration from Quake, and took, like, concepts and designs from Quake and made them, sorry, I'm losing my voice, work for Halo. But, just, if you copy just whatever map from whatever game straight over, it's not going to play right.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Cloud Massacre mentioned about making objects destructible. What's your guys' opinion on that?
Broken glass, please, from Reflection. I would like to have that. Just so I could be a vandal mid-game and I'm just bored of just run around just meleeing all the glass, fight the power.
I think that'd be cool. But from a technical standpoint, that might be a little, there's a lot that goes into that, because, you have to do the animations for, like, the glass shattering, or the, the object being destroyed and whatnot. So I think, like, being able to apply that to every object is unrealistic. But, having some level of that, like, as it is, you can destroy pallets, and you can beat up, like, those Jersey barriers, that sort of thing. Maybe having a bit more of that, take that a level higher, but I don't think, like, being able to destroy every Forge item, Well,
I think where this is possibly could be coming from is, like, Battlefield.
Right. Well, yeah, but I don't think you can, like, the way Forge objects work, it's like, even when they're put into this larger structure, they're still their individual objects. And it's like, so if you, like, you couldn't just, like, blow a hole in it, when it's made out of these movable objects, that would, the coding, like, making that happen would be, like, impossible, or next to it,
Well, maybe just introduce more objects that are destructible.
Yeah, sure. Like,
have a few walls that are destructible, and that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Stick a big hole from a tank round.
Yeah, something like that. Where if you have, like, a big base and you do have a tank that comes up, then you can't blow a hole in the wall.
Yeah.
I mean, it almost kind of goes along with the idea of having a switch for a door. It's like, if you let the team get to that switch, you open up a vulnerability. Whereas if you allow someone to just sit there with a tank blasting out the wall and don't take it out, then you run the risk of having an exposure that maybe gives one team an advantage over the other for objective maps.
Yeah, sure.
One thing from me and this isn't particularly Forge related, but having those weapons despawn at defined times. So being able to have like a variable in there where the weapons despawn after 30 seconds or the weapons despawn after a minute. Instead
of that blasted 12 seconds.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's terrible. Guys, I dropped rockets. I'm going to go, once I respawn, I'm going to go get... Oh, wait. No, they're gone. Okay, no.
Yeah, they're gone.
Yeah.
In Spartan Ops, that is the worst.
Yeah, I haven't played Spartan Ops in like a year and a half. Oh.
Well, for me, it's like I go to a weapon, I walk I'm just running along, I walk over weapons like, oh, a sniper. So I'll go to walk backwards. And by the time I walk backwards, it's gone.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that...
Because it's out of my field of view.
Yeah, that despawn time is incredibly short. I have a...
It won't despawn if it's in view, but as soon as it's out of view, it's like gone. Disappears.
Yeah.
It's weird.
Mm-hmm.
And frustrating as hell, too.
Yeah.
So that's one of my things. Godzilla T, he says, if 343 gave you one thing you could add to Forge, what would it be? I think we just kind of had a 2.5-hour discussion on that.
Yeah.
Yeah, just rewind Godzilla and you can find out what we want.
Yeah.
Maybe if you personally want something in Forge.
Yeah.
Like if you want your own custom piece in Forge, what would it be?
Interactive cameras mid-game. Take a selfie mid-game.
I just want...
Cameras would be a cool idea. Cameras and screens?
Imagine on Dominion, you have the Dominion screens. And you pretty much have CCTV, so you can see where people are attacking. Not only that, it's great for machinima players. They don't have to bother with the whole green screen jiggery pokery. They can just literally have that screen there. They can see what's going on. They would just, at a completely new level of gameplay.
That would be cool. And do that for spectator mode where you could define cameras.
Oh.
So on the Griffball side, yes, please.
Yeah, Jumbotron in the Griffball court.
That would be... Oh, that's a really cool idea. Yeah.
If I had to pick one thing out of this entire list, the biggest thing that would have an impact for me would be to get my damage boundaries. Because the kind of stuff that I make, that would be very versatile.
Yeah, I think for me, if I picked like one individual thing, it would probably be the switches. Because, I mean, like, I know it has like endless potential, but for me personally, being able to make, just factoring into one-sided objective modes, I think that'd be really cool. But I think from a more holistic standpoint, my biggest thing is the designing the objects from the standpoint of these aren't singular things. They're going to go into this larger structure, make them, fit together better,
Yeah, I mean, people are going to take that staircase and they're going to turn it upside down and they're going to try to use it that way. So expect that and design it for that. If you have a rock that's they added in Forge Island, they had the big rock wall. One side's flat, make the other side rough. So people have some options there.
Yeah.
Yep. I don't see any questions left in the chat.
I think it's just Angry Let's asking if any of us are heading to E3. My answer to that is, I'm on the wrong side of the planet. But I am going to MCM London Comic Con tomorrow, so I'm catching the train in 5 hours. 9-hour train journey, dressed as a hunter from Destiny.
Ooh, wow.
So there will be pictures.
I'm going to say no comment.
I would
interpret that how you will.
I would love to take the guys from my YouTube channel, the contributors to E3 or something, but it's expensive. Plane tickets, all that.
Yeah. So.
Yeah.
Alrighty. I think that pretty much wraps it up for tonight. Thank you guys for coming on. Do you want to plug your Twitter's website, all that stuff? Starting with Pete.
Well, I guess you can go to PeteTheDuck.com, and it's got links to all my different junk on there. My YouTube and Twitter. I don't do too much on YouTube right now.
Junk.
Well, it's just stuff. It's I'm not a big deal. I'm a Halo fan just like anybody else. I like Forge a lot.
You're on this podcast. You're very much a big deal.
I appreciate it. But yeah, if you want to know more about me, some of the stuff I built, just go to PeteTheDuck.com.
And we'll have this list that we've been discussing up on our post too. So if you want to go and check out the full list for yourself, you can hit up this post or you can just head on over to his website, petetheduck.com, and find it there.
Yeah, it's right on the main page.
Yep. Receptor.
I think in terms of shout out for me, it's I don't really have a YouTube account or just have my Twitter account at Hairy Goggles. Basically my main home is the group I'm part of, Midland Base. So if you're interested in joining us or anything like that, just have a look see. It's www.midlandbase.com. So all one word. For you to have a look see, there's plenty of stuff there. You can squeak our mascot, the squeaky sheep. So plenty to do. But yes, so if you want to play Halo for fun, join us.
Cool. Psycho Duck, your turn.
All right. Well, I think probably almost anyone who's watching a podcast about Forge has probably heard of the Halo Forge epidemic on YouTube by now. But if not, it's a cool place, cool channel. Also, HaloCustoms.com is wonderful for, just cool community, all that. So,
yeah.
Yeah.
We've pulled a lot of our custom games for Wacky Wednesday from the Halo Forge Epidemic and HaloCustoms.com. So,
cool.
Right on. Cool, guys. Again, thank you for coming on. Really appreciate you guys taking the time to discuss Forge. Remember, if you guys want to check these guys out, we'll have links to their websites and stuff on our post for the podcast. So check us out, podtacular.com. And while you're there, check out our brand new forums. Yes, the forums are not a lie. They are alive and well. So head on over to podtacular.com/forums. Go register, start partaking in conversations. We've got people signed up and we've started talking about a few topics. So head on over. The forums are alive and well. So the long wait is over. So go sign up today. Yes, very much so. People have been asking that for, I think, about 2 years now. So I came to the realization that despite not having a custom theme, which I kind of wanted, we just needed to get the forums out because of the big announcement from last week. So I went, looked for one, found a pretty decent one. A lot of people like it so far. And that's, I think, just the forum theme that we're going to use for a while. And got some topics going, got some forums made and everything. So go head on over, check it out. Go register, start partaking in some of the conversations, and we'll start to pull a lot of info and discussion topics from the forums and for the podcast. So we really want to start focusing back on the community stuff with where the future of Halo is going. So for all these times where we're going to be in between big announcements, we really want to focus on community highlights. And on the Halo 5 podcast that we'll be doing, we'll pull a lot of discussion points from your guys' post. So that's a good reason to go sign up on the forums and leave your thoughts and opinions on things. So go do it. Podtacular.com/forums, or you can just go to podtacular.com and hit the forums button at the top. Also, find us on Twitter, YouTube, and Facebook, and of course Twitch, where we do our live stream recordings at 8:30 p.m. on Thursday nights Eastern Time. So definitely check us out on all those. If you guys want to help support the show, you can do so by donating to PayPal. We have a little PayPal donation on the front page, or we have an Amazon affiliate link now. So if you buy stuff on Amazon regularly, you can go to our homepage. We have a little widget there for buying Halo 2 Vista right now because we're going to have a game night pretty soon to commemorate the last few days of Halo 2 being able to be played on Games for Windows Live for those who need like the last achievements or want to play something like that. So go pick up your copy. We'll have a game night soon. And if you want to buy some other stuff, you just click through that link and then navigate to, if you have like a pre-populated cart, you can just go to your cart, and then all the stuff that you buy will be, we get a certain small percentage back on that. So those are ways to help out the site and help out all the stuff that we're doing here. So definitely, if you're willing to give and able to give, or if you buy stuff on Amazon, then definitely check those out. You can leave us a submission as well. If you're not particularly forum savvy, or if you just want to send us an email directly, you can do so by emailing us at submissions@podtacular.com, or you can hit the big green submit button on our homepage, or you can call our listener voicemail 240-200-HALO. That's 240-200-4256, and leave us about a minute to 2 minute message with your question, idea, whatever. So that is a wrap for us tonight. Thank you guys for tuning in. Check us out on the podcast network. That's thepodcast.com and all the podcasts over there as well. Big shout outs to those guys. They have some really cool podcasts over there and really cool content for you to entertain your ears with, so to speak. One last thank you to our guests, Pete the Duck, Receptor 17, and Psycho Duck. Thank you again, guys, for being on the show, and we hope to see you back in the future.
Well, thanks so much for having me.
Yeah, it was fun.
Yeah, thank you very much. And now for 3 hours of sleep, then off to MCM.
Indeed. We will see you later, guys. Keep on fragging Forge.
Heck yeah.
Keep on fragging invisible walls. I mean, you won't know you're fragging it until you throw the grenade, but